You're fine. I'll just push you out of the way. No problem.
Good evening and welcome to the Timberlane Regional School District's first meeting of the new calendar year for Thursday, August 22nd, 2019. I'd like to take a moment of silence for our troops to put themselves in harm's way. Okay, if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'm going to actually move the approval of our minutes to the ending portion of our meeting, and our student representative as well, and we're going to go into a non-public to start off this meeting.
Shutting your roll call.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Brian Boyle,
Here.
Lee Doobie.
Here.
Kim Farah.
Here.
Sheila Lowe's.
Here.
Sarah Malcolmer.
Here.
Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Kristen Savage.
Here.
Sue Sherman. And Jennifer Silva.
Here.
Also seated with the board this evening is the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Metzler.
Thank you. Thank you for correcting me, Dr. Metzler. So we're going to move on to our first, which is going to be the non-public that we're going to have under RSA 91A:3, paragraph Roman numeral 2, which is reputation. So I'm going to ask a roll call vote for that. Kathy?
Would you like to make a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded.
Lee Doobie.
Lee, yes.
Okay. Mr. Boyle.
Yes.
Mr. Doobie.
Yes.
Dr. Farah.
Yes.
Miss Lowe's.
Yes.
Mrs. Malcolmer.
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill.
Yes.
Mrs. Savage.
Yes.
And Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Time in 7:08.
Okay.
Nancy, stay if possible.
It's in my Google
yeah.
Drive.
Okay. All right, we're back to our regular scheduled program, already in progress. We'll move on to our,
To seal the
our,
minutes.
Make a
Oh, yeah,
motion to
approval of
seal
minutes.
the,
Motion to
Oh, yes,
seal the
excuse
minutes of the non-public.
make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public.
Second.
motion made by Jen, seconded by Lee. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
It's just,
Oh,
it's a
it's a roll
two-thirds
call.
vote, so you have to poll vote,
Okay.
poll. Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Doobie?
Yes.
Mrs. Dr. Ferris? Not here. Mrs. Lowe's?
Yes.
Mrs. Malcolmer?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Savage?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mrs. Silva?
Yes.
Okay, they are sealed.
Okay. Now we'll move on to our approval of minutes for the July 25th.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 25th minutes. This is,
Sheila Lowe's motion.
Okay, Sheila's made the motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Brian.
I just sent those to Kathy.
Okay, great. So I'll try to make a point to get them printed out before we get to that tonight, because they're on the agenda.
Oh. Sean hasn't looked at them. And they're not in a PDF, it's just,
That's fine.
okay. Sorry, I thought you were taking care of this room.
Everybody all set? I'll call the question. Call the question. All those in favor? All those abstain?
And you were there. Did you vote in favor?
Yes. So, I'm sorry.
It's okay. 0, and then you had 2 abstentions, correct? Thank you.
Lee and,
Lee Doobie and Chris, and
okay. So that's 6-2, 602. That's a pass. Now we'll move on to the non-public minutes.
I don't remember. I
They're
thought
sealed.
I wasn't here because I don't remember.
I'll make a motion to approve the non-public minutes for July 25th, 2019.
I'll second.
Motion made by Brian, seconded by Sheila. Okay. We'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? 602. Okay, let's go back.
Like my timing is off when I'm thinking that. I don't know why.
All right, we'll move on to our first order of business is the athletic department. David?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Just first of all, we are in full swing already, is what I tell people. It's been a very busy summer, but I would be remiss if I didn't thank a bunch of people that have been doing a lot of work all summer long. First of all, the grounds crew has been fantastic all summer long, and right here at the start of the season, they've been working tremendously hard. I am very fortunate to have administrative assistant Sarah Vera, who has been amazing all summer long. And just want to make sure that people know our coaches have been absolutely fantastic. The school nurses have been amazing. They've been in during the summer. They've been helping me update physicals all summer long. So it's really been a team effort all the way through, and it's been really impressive. Just real quick, I'm going to try to come through some of these slides, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to have you turn in. Just, you know, this is our organizational chart as we look at how things work. You know, in my department, I'm overseeing, you know, obviously we know middle school and high school athletics, as well as some elementary cross-country, and district-wide elementary, middle, and high school PE and health. And I also am the coordinator for the district facilities, the gyms, the fields, not just for our sports teams, but also for the youth programs as well. Some other responsibilities, you know, interviewing, screening, recommendations, supervising, and evaluations of all district teachers as well as coaches. And then in 2018, just some stats. And again, I'm going to work without my glasses because I can see distance, so this is actually not too bad. High school, we had, you know, we had 49 total coaches covering 74 positions over the 3 seasons. We are fortunate, and I say this all the time around the state, we have a number of coaches that coach multiple sports, which is absolutely great for us. Middle school, we had 25 coaches last year, and obviously, as I said, Sarah Vera, administrative assistant, Bruce Johnson is a coordinator at the middle school. We just hired a new middle school trainer, just so that people know. His name is Ryan Durant. He's been at the high school with Jess Susi, our high school trainer, during our high school preseason. He's very good. He's very good, and they're working really well together. So that's good. And then various game help, ticket sellers, announcers, supervisors. Last year we had 51 high school teams, 29 of them varsity, 15 JV, and freshmen. And we say / reserve because we do have a couple of teams with some freshmen / sophomores on them. We had 7 of those teams, and then we had 22 middle school teams. This was just a chart that we put together of all the sports that we offered last year at both high school and middle school for boys and for girls. And last year, we put on 682 games, which I think is tremendous. The exact numbers, I believe it was 509 at the high school and 173 at the middle school.
Can I,
That's not including practices, scrimmages, or jamborees, that's just games. So, I'm sorry.
I just to avoid making you going back to
Don't make me
this.
squint.
No, I won't. And If you can't recall all 7 off the top
Yeah.
of your head, that's okay. But I'm just wondering, of these, do you know which 7 are freshman reserve? I didn't realize we had that many
The
freshman teams.
like true freshman teams, like, and again, I'll probably miss something,
That's
but
okay.
true freshman teams, you know, we have a freshman football team, girls volleyball has a true freshman team.
Yep.
Boys basketball has a true freshman team, baseball has a true freshman team. We've had some reserves, just thinking off the top, this year, again, we have a boys freshman / sophomore reserve, because, and I think one of the coaches is here, but we try to keep kids as much as we can and get them some games. So I actually have 5 or 6 games for those kids to play in. And then I'm squinting a little bit, but there might be something else. I'm not quite sure what I
Or
have there.
lacrosse. Does boys lacrosse have freshmen?
Well, the
Boys
numbers,
and girls lacrosse.
the numbers in lacrosse have gone up, so we've actually looked to do reserves. And when I get down to spring, I can share some of our little obstacles that happened last spring. But we do have freshman reserve for lacrosse as well. Just some things that have been going on this summer. First and foremost, New England Student Leadership Conference. Timberlane sent 7 students to the Student Leadership Conference on July 16th at Worcester State, sent the most of any New Hampshire school. I am meeting with those kids now, and the tradition is that they come back and tell us what they learned and what are we going to incorporate in our school and in our district and in our Life of an Owl program. So I'm anxious to see what we're going to try to implement this year. We've already had our fall coaches meeting, where we always discuss NHIA regulations and safety procedures and expectations. We have updated coaching certifications. On the same day that we did our coaches meeting, you see some pictures here, on the same day that we did our coaches meeting, we did first aid CPR course for anyone that was expired and had to update their first aid CPR. Coaches also have to, every even year, coaches also have to take an online concussion class. And a one time, they have to take a heat illness class, which all coaches have to take. Doesn't matter what sport you are in. So we get a little bit of a joke out of that, but that's okay. And in the preseason, we need it. So it's been great. And head coaches also have to do a rules review of their sport. I put down there about application for NATA sports safety procedures, because I really wanted to acknowledge Jess Susi, our high school trainer. Ever since last spring, she has been working with the National Athletic Training Association on safety protocols and procedures. There's guidelines. So we've been working with the school nurses, and we now have that written up and implemented. We have binders for every coach. And one of the things that we're going to be doing in the fall sports season, once we get our teams kind of situated, is we're going to be doing some drills. Kids need to know what we do. Coaches need to know, what are we going to do in case of an emergency? Where's the AED? Who's going to be responsible for this? Who's on the lookout for the ambulance? And again, God forbid, we don't want to have anything, but we certainly want to be prepared for it. A couple of days ago, we had some good thunder and lightning. Football team was out at the practice field. We heard it. Jess gave her a 2-horn blast, which is the signal. Coaches and kids came right off the field. It was very, very clean and neat. So, like I said, she's done a great job, so I really wanted to make sure people understood that. All summer long, I have the fun time of doing the NHIA eligibility review. So we've been checking physicals, we've been checking impact concussion testing, their academic standing. And the other piece, I was just I'm on the NHIA eligibility committee, so we had a meeting today. The affidavit was put in for our fall sports already. Mr. Woodworth and I went through that. But it's important to note that you do have to recognize and register in certain areas your transfers, your homeschoolers, your charter schoolers, et cetera. So you really have to make sure you have all that. So high school and middle school combined, yeah, we've looked at about 500 transcripts so far. And because I'm a little neurotic, and I do appreciate this, but I mean, you know, I hope you appreciate it. I'm a little neurotic, so we will do a double check before we play our first game. So, not that I have anything else to do. Parent Awareness Night will be on Tuesday, August 27th, and we have a tradition here at Timberlane. And one of the things I'm really proud of is that we are really family-oriented around here. We try to treat everybody with respect and stay together. So all of our teams will get off the field early on the 27th, and we will go into the cafeteria, and we will have dinner together, coaches, kids, everyone. And then at 6:30, we'll go into the Performing Arts Center and meet the parents, and we'll go over our expectations. But it's a tradition that the kids really appreciate, and it's fun for us. And also, just a reminder, this is a Hall of Fame year, so on September 26th, we will be inducting our class of 2019. In terms of just some budget lines that we deal with, quite a bit, just to try to put some explanation to them. Our game expense lines, for example, they include quite a bit of things in there, and I think sometimes the perception is that it's just the officials that you see at the game. But what comes out of there, these are some examples of what comes out of there. So the official assigning fees, each sport has an assigner who is responsible for getting officials to you for each and every game. Easier said than done sometimes, but nonetheless, we have an assigner, and there's a fee attached with each sport and with each level of that sport. Obviously, the game officials, any police details, all the game help that you see. And something else that's interesting is any kind of entry fees. So, we send our wrestlers, which are terrific. We send them all over the place, got to pay the entrance fees, they come out of that. Ski races, when we have races either hosting or not hosting, the entry fees come out of that. So I just put down things that fluctuate and things that can affect it, obviously. Cancellations, reschedules. I had a conversation with someone one day because in spring, for example, and this is the rule, so if you cancel a baseball game in the third inning and it's not a legal game, you have to pay those officials. And then when you come back to replay the game, you have to pay 2 more officials. So, there's just a bunch of factors, and you all know that. Many of you are, around sports a lot. So there are things that come up all the time, and we just have to be flexible with that.
Sean, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Just again, so you don't have to go back.
Yeah.
The game help. I mean, I've met with you, and full disclosure, I was on the lacrosse booster, so we've talked about this.
And
but,
you've done a fine job on
Oh, thank you. The scoreboard and the clock, though, we're not doing that for all sports. So what sports?
We do it for the sports that we charge.
Okay,
So that's kind of how we do
Entrance
it.
fee,
So the
charge
sports that we
entrance
charge,
okay.
we do that. It's just, there's no way that we can get enough people to do each and everything.
Okay.
And later on, I do have actually something that I think you might find interesting, but
So-
What sports do we charge for?
we charge for football, we charge for basketball, we charge for wrestling, we charge for hockey.
So if a team makes the playoffs, say,
We are required,
okay.
yeah, we are required.
To
Okay.
charge.
Yep, if you're hosting, you're required.
Yeah.
And then, so then you would pay for
Yeah, and we don't get,
things-
and we don't get
you don't
any of
get
that
any
money,
of
it goes to the NHIA.
Right. So,
And we have a whole bunch of papers to fill out to make sure that they know that we did everything. But yeah, so. Transportation, pretty self-explanatory, and basically the rates and fees are set for us. We predominantly use buses, but sometimes we will use SUVs to take smaller teams and smaller groups. It tends to work out a little bit better when we get to do that sometimes. Another line, the facility usage line that we have, obviously Pat's Peak for skiing is where we go. These are last year's figures. Cedardale is where we swim, and the ice center is where we skated. So, about 4,700 at Pat's, almost 3,400 at Cedardale, and a little over 17,000 at the ice center. And then you see a $3,000 locker room. That was for the locker room for the hockey team at the ice center. That was in addition to the ice. Contracted services, Access Sports, and you guys know this already, I think last spring, the same price again this year. They have not had a price increase since they've been with us, so that's the figure. We've been very happy with them. As I said, they've been doing a lot of work with us, not only with the impact testing, but also with safety protocols and procedures, so they've done a really nice job. Supplies and equipment, and my coaches, I am very grateful for the people that I work with. They are terrific people. We tell people the same thing in every school district that I've been in. We're going to prioritize the needs of the programs, going to communicate with coaches, and the goal is we got to make sure, no matter what the budget is, we have to make sure that everybody gets their necessities. Needs come first, wants come second, and people are terrific. They really are. Last year, just some purchases last year. Those are just some examples of things that we had purchased, some weight room equipment. And again, we had a great summer weight room program this year. Kids were in there all summer long. We had a middle school pitching machine was needed, field hockey goals for the middle school. The press box at the football field has a relatively new sound system. But what we were lacking desperately was something to put it in. So we now have a nice, sturdy metal cabinet box that will protect the sound system much better than what we've been doing. We needed portable fencing for softball last year, which we got. And we know that the high school softball team's gonna need a pitching machine this year. Just some little neurotic things that I purchased, I call it a scorer's table because that's all it is. It's an aluminum portable scorer's table, which is much more sturdy than the tables that we're throwing out on fields. So if this thing works, I'm probably gonna get another one. But I started it on the varsity soccer field. We'll see how it's working, if people like it. See if we can get some more for some other fields. It's just easier and more sturdy for people to use. Uniforms, people talk about this all the time. We do have a schedule. I know when they got uniforms. It's all on a chart. We know when they got uniforms, when they're due next. We're running a little bit behind, but we're really scrapping to make sure that we're not running too far behind. So the next kind of teams that are up, is soccer is up, hopefully sooner rather than later. Skiing, we need to get some more suits for them. And the tennis girls are up. And we try to, we'll try to keep going. But like I said, we're a little bit behind, but we're not too far behind. And I'm pretty confident that we can keep ourselves going in the right direction now. So, challenges for this year, 1920. So we are going to have a gymnastics program. It's a winter sport, and we are going to have that. The cost estimate right now is roughly about $10,000. I've been communicating with facilities. We have not committed to a facility yet, but we are getting closer. I've communicated with facilities. I'm setting up interviews next week with interested coaches that have applied. I will be going to a scheduling meeting in October, I believe, to get our gymnastics schedule. We've already registered for it. So that's just kind of a cost guesstimate of what it's going to be. I've called other high schools and gotten feedback from them too. So it could be a little less, but we have to be prepared for it. I put down indoor facility usage because in the next round of budgeting, and if there's any way I can do it in this round, I will. But in the next round of budgeting, I am going to propose and put in the budget for some indoor time for boys and girls lacrosse and tennis. The springs have not gotten any better. They're getting worse. The numbers for lacrosse are ballooning. We can't rely on the SAU parking lot. We tried to put the tennis team inside gymnasiums. It's not a good, accurate way to do it. They don't get a true look at the ball or hitting. We need to get them inside. And again, I think that's something that we will be budgeting. Now, Lacrosse Boosters has done fundraising and use some of that money, and I appreciate everything that they do, but the fact of the matter is that our programs have grown to the point where we need to have that in place. It shouldn't be something that we're questioning anymore. We had a little bit of a hiccup on the high jump area of the track. There was an irrigation pipe burst sometime during the summer, and now there's a big round hole in the middle of the high jump area because they had to get to the pipe. So that's going to have to be repaired, and I know Tom Geary was well aware of it, and that's got to be repaired. It's like a 4 or 5 foot hole, but they had to get to the pipe. Another issue that we have to take care of, and according to Tom Geary, it will be taken care of at the end of the fall season. The middle school softball field just simply does not drain. It's not a new problem, but it's a problem. And last year, it was not playable for the entire spring season. Those kids could not get on that field the entire spring. It was underwater. Did not drain, mud, the whole bit. They couldn't practice. We tried to bring them over to the high school and play a couple of games over there, but it has to be fixed. That was kind of over the top. And Tom is aware of it, and Tom has a plan. That's what he told me, and he told me that he will wait till after the fall sports are done, when soccer's over, and he said that he will address that. So that's great, but it has to get done. We also have some movement going on. If you drive by the back of the building, you're going to notice a couple of little different things. And again, from what I understand, there was a septic issue where the football practice area traditionally is. And they've now fixed that, and they've put loam, and they've leveled it off, and they've thrown down seed. I don't know what they've done, but short version is the football team is now practicing further down towards the middle school soccer fields for this year only. And then thank you to Jerry Dow, Mitch Mensis, and everybody else that came out. We have reconfigured the soccer fields of middle school so that everybody can play nice on that side, and everybody will be able to practice and play. So we've made the adjustment, but just in case, if you go back there and you say, where's, why aren't they over there? That field is off limits for the fall. Okay? Future agenda items that I'm going to be looking at going forward. In 2020, 2021, will be a new NHIA classification cycle. The cycles go for 2 years. So on October 1st of this school year, we will submit our total enrollment numbers for the high school to the NHIA, as will every other New Hampshire school. Then what will happen is the classification committees, they will take all those numbers, and they will classify everybody by division, by numbers. Then the individual sport teams, committees will then classify into divisions by numbers again. We will get word on what divisions we are in, and then at that time, we have an opportunity, if we so choose, we have an opportunity to then appeal or request a waiver to go up or down. If you go down, you can only go down one division, you cannot go down two divisions, and you can go up. So that's gonna happen this fall. It's a classification year coming up. I put down NFHS live stream equipment, and I've been working with Ken Henderson and Dean. The National Federation of High Schools is our governing body, and they've been putting out. They're trying to get more games out. They're trying to promote high school sports. So for $5,000, they will supply you with 2 cameras that they will bring and mount. So for example, most schools that do it, they mount one in their gym, and they mount one out on a field somewhere, or whatever they want to do. And then you can control from your phone. You can control video. You can video practices, you can video freshman games, you can video whatever you want. And then you can send that and upload that, and it can either be live streamed or it can even be on delay. But now, grandparents who are in Florida can now watch their grandchild play. A lot of high schools are starting to look at this. I met with a representative of the National Federation of High Schools. I was very impressed with her, and also Dean Zanello, because he's much smarter than me as far as technology goes. So this is something we're going to look at, in the next budget season. There are some schools that are in the area that are using it, and they love it. We have a very good problem. We are running out of room in the gym to put high school championship banners up.
That's a good problem.
That's a good
It is a
problem.
good problem.
So we need a bigger
So,
gym?
I'm sorry? We need to be, I like where you're going. I was going somewhere else, but I'm going to go with you. No. So I'm meeting within the next couple of weeks. I've got the gentleman from the Nixon Company coming. He supplies all our banners over the years. He's going to come in, and he's going to start giving me pricing on what it would cost to get team banners with the years of the championships on them, so that we can have some room. So in the next budget round, I'm going to have a price on what that will cost, and I'm gonna have to budget for that. So it's gonna be an interesting thing, but it's a good problem to have. What this means, the netting system for soccer/lacrosse field. I've been talking about this with Tom Gary, I've been talking about this with the grounds crew, but I think in the next budget season, we really need to take a step and budget for this. And the field that I use as an example is at NHTI in Concord. Okay, New Hampshire Technical Institute, they have a soccer field over there. And I've talked to their athletic director. So basically what the netting system is, if you look at our varsity soccer field, there's the big telephone poles, and there's that big net that tries to stop the soccer balls from going into the woods. What they have at NHTI is they have the aluminum poles that go right in the sleeve. And the netting that we would use would be small enough to stop lacrosse balls and soccer balls. And we'd put them on the street side as well as the woods side. I personally love how simplistically wonderful NHTI soccer field is. I brought Jerry Dow with me, and we took pictures, and because I really feel like our field is a good field, and with a little bit of adjustment there, it's gonna look really nice. And it's not overly expensive. I talked to the athletic director over there, Paul Hogan, and he said, you know what? He said it's probably $5,000 or $6,000 you can get, you know, the stanchions here. And I said, well, I want to do them on both sides. I'll pay attention. But I'm going to do some research on that for us, because I really feel like that would be necessary. And you know what? Now we can protect the street, protect the cars, protect the ball from going into the woods. And why not stop a lacrosse ball and a soccer ball instead of just a soccer ball? So just something that we're thinking about. And the last thing that I had put down there, I'm working with Ken Henderson about redesigning the athletic website. We have tons of people that have kids in the middle school and in the high school. Our vision is that we'll have an athletics website, and, you know, with the tabs, and if you want to know what's going on at the middle school, you click the middle school, and it will do that. You want to know the high school, click the high school and do that. Just making things easier, or trying to make things easier for parents. So I'm working with Ken on that, because I think we want to look the same as everything else in the district. We want to look the same web design. We want him to do it. But we just kind of want to get pertinent information on there and make it easier for people instead of going all over the place to try to get stuff. So, again, that's kind of I don't know what I just did, so I apologize. I'm leaving it alone, Dean. I'm leaving it alone. So,
Well, thank you.
no, thank you.
Okay, Jen?
Yeah?
You know what I'm gonna ask?
Yep. But I'll let you ask it because no one else knows.
So I'll ask it, I don't know, it's about lacrosse, specifically, but in general would apply to other sports. I don't know if the boys lacrosse encountered the same thing, but as far as classification and appeals, that can only be done. So, did we appeal that last year?
We did. We appealed
And-
both.
And
We were refused.
we were refused.
Correct.
But Portsmouth and Winnicott were not refused.
By NHIAA.
Correct.
Yeah, by their classification.
Who has a feeder program and an excellent record. And we have no feeder program, and
Remember that you're talking to the person that agrees with you and is.
So where
I
goes-
know,
You know-
I know. And I'm asking this because the NHIA website does speak to classification being 2 years. It does not speak to the appeal process having to be every 2 years. So,
Checked. I checked.
so that's my question, yeah.
You can't do it in mid-cycle. I checked with the NHIA executive director. I also checked with the classification committee. And in Massachusetts, for example, their cycles are 4 years. So you're locked for 4. The thought in New Hampshire is that you're only locked for 2, and that it could change again. The only thing I am going to say right now, because we will assess in September and October, because you got to be prepared. You only have a little bit of turnaround time.
Yeah.
So we're going to be prepared in September to assess, our whole program and what we do. There's a form that has to get filled out. It's a very extensive form, which we're prepared for. We have all the information that we're supposed to have, and everything gets sent in. But we can't do it
Do you know
cycle.
why we were denied? I mean, is this a political thing, or it just seems
No.
odd to me that two
Right.
districts
Yeah.
with very strong feeder programs and very strong records were approved, and
One
our
of the pro-
district with zero feeder program for girls and literally,
One of the issues that you run into, and this is the grim reality of what we're working with, is unfortunately, we're kind of going just by the numbers sometimes, and which I disagree with.
Yeah.
So you have more kids in your school than Portsmouth has in theirs. Now, Portsmouth has God bless them, they have a great program, blah, blah, blah. By the numbers in the sport, Portsmouth might already be they don't have to appeal. Their number puts them in Division Two.
No.
Or Division Three, whatever it is, you know
puts
what
them
I'm
in
saying?
Division One, and they appealed to
By
play
their,
Division Two.
by their lacrosse number.
Appealed by your, yeah.
So, see, I haven't researched Portsmouth, but I'll go back. But sometimes, let me tell you what happens sometimes. Sometimes, when you look at the overall number, if we were, whatever, 11-something we are, and Portsmouth, for example, or Winnicott or someone else, or Goffstown might be 1,020. So we both might be Division I schools, but in certain sports, the number fluctuates, and they might not have to appeal, because that number might put them in the division that they wanted to be in, unless they wanted to opt up, which they're not gonna wanna opt up. But the short answer to your question is that in September, I'll be working with Mr. Woodworth, and we'll be getting ready to do the things that we have to do. So,
Sheila?
Mine are very elementary stuff. Why are we behind in uniforms?
well, because we've kind of been very careful about how we're spending our money in the last several
You
years.
did really well though last year. If I'm looking at the budget,
And,
yeah, you've got some money left over, so,
I do, because I was kind of really cheap in the beginning to make
Right.
sure that I was gonna finish the season.
I really wish you would've came to us at the end of last year and said, hey,
I-
I might have some money there, can I spend it on uniforms? And we could've caught up.
I will do that in the future. I just don't want to,
It's hard because you don't know who's going to be a champion.
No, but what,
and you don't know, like, a lot of times,
I'm yeah, I'm
I
trying.
mean, the world that I live in,
I understand, it's unpredictable, I understand
but
that.
also the world that I live in, when we were in January, when, for example, I was going to look for spring uniforms in January, which is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
However, there were questions about my budget at that point in time, and I wasn't sure what we were gonna do, and the last thing I wanted to do was come here and ask for more money. So when it ended, and I had the money, we caught up with lacrosse, and we're kind of playing a little bit behind. But, I mean, we're doing the best we can right now.
Girls lacrosse or boys?
Both.
She goes, we did?
Oh, boys and girls lacrosse will have new uniforms
oh,
season
Will.
coming up.
I was
Will.
gonna say,
That's what I'm
okay,
saying.
not
No,
the
we're-
best. Yeah, okay, I was like, wait a
No,
minute.
we're a little bit behind, but boys and
Yeah.
girls lacrosse will have them. and
Yeah,
they'll
I
have
just,
them.
Piggyback.
no,
I
I
still
want
have
to
more.
piggyback on Sheila's thing. And I understand the budget and whatnot and the concern. I would be curious to see what it would cost you to get caught up. Because I see the middle school, my biggest thing is pride for these students.
Yeah.
When they go onto a field, and I'm telling you, the middle school soccer uniforms are deplorable for the boys. They are.
I can get pricing.
They are nasty.
I'll get
And
pricing.
My son is my younger one is wearing the same ones my older one, and when my oldest was wearing them, they were nasty.
I'll get pricing.
So I would be curious to see what it is, because to me, when you're an athlete and you go onto a field, especially when you're Division I now and you're playing some of these schools, and you walk on with a shirt that's
Sure.
moldy stained, and
I'll get
that
pricing.
just takes your level of play from here to here, and that's a mentality thing.
Okay.
And you want an athlete to walk on feeling like a winner, not, and then we tell the kids, you got to wear them to school.
Okay.
And it's just gross. I mean,
they're
whether it
way
be,
too
and I'm
big.
using boys soccer as just an example. It's
Yeah,
just
that's fine.
gross.
Okay.
So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I, as a board member, and
I
I know
can
it's more of a
easily get
budget thing,
numbers.
would like to know what that number is to get. Let's show some pride in our athletes and I mean,
Great.
we have other areas where we can't do things. And again, and I'm going to jump in ahead of you and you can scold me later. But like the track, perfect example. We would all love to see, correct me if I'm wrong, a track that we can use all the time. But we're looking at the feasibility of how do we get there and how do the numbers work. But like you brought up the high jump area.
That was awful to
And,
begin
and,
with.
and we can't use that now, but we are using the track for practice purposes.
Mm-hmm.
We just can't do home meets. And I think that's something that's out there that's misinformation. People think it's condemned completely and you can't even step foot on it or it's going to crumble. And we'd all love to see doing the home meets here. And now I'm going to bring up the question that I'm going to bring up, turf. I mean, I know it's not in your budget, I wish it were. But how do we help you? Or how do we create a committee, a realistic one, not somebody that just walks in with a warrant article and says, I want turf. How can we all work together,
Good idea.
community effort, to try and make this happen? And it's not something that's gonna happen overnight,
Sure.
but, I mean, you hear the words, and yes, there are people that don't want it, and it scares people, but you hear about all these efforts out there with donors or whatnot that come forward.
corporate
And we
sponsors.
all talk about it, and you have people that want to do it. You have coaches that talk about it, and great. And then there are people that don't like the idea. But how can we realistically put together? And I spoke to Tom Geary about this before, and he was all for it. But seriously, how can we work together to start creating a committee to seriously look into this, so we're not every year
Yep.
dealing with the frustration, and we're really creating a plan to move forward?
Athletic Advisory Committee.
And I think that what we have to do too, and that's easy enough, but what I really would love to see is I would love to see us come to the table and look at the big picture. I feel, and again, I'm just one man, I really feel like we hop on one, like we're hopping on something and it's gotta go here, and if it doesn't go here, I don't want it. It's like, listen,
You have,
look, let's look at our footprint. Look at what we have, what do we want to do? And let's come together as a group to formulate what the plan will be. I agree with you. Formulate the plan and then stick by it together
And
for
figure out
what
how
the
to
plan
fund it.
is. But I think, I feel as though, and again, this is just my opinion, I feel like we push and pull with it. We're all pushing and pull. Well, my idea is better than your idea. Listen, let's sit down in a room and come up with one idea
agreed.
that we can all feel good about, so that when we're going to talk to people, it's the same message. Because, and again, I'm not claiming that I have the number one answer, but I would love to
But-
sit down with a group and formulate a group and say, okay, let's start planning together.
Well, and that's the thing, and we need that plan, and people
would love
say,
that.
Phil, you're on the school board because you didn't support the track. Why I didn't support the track is I looked at that area, and I'm seeing what you're seeing, that I can't support the track and say, let's go dump that money into the track, when maybe 2 years later, we're gonna come forward and do something with that field, and now all that money we put on the track is no good for 2 seasons of track.
And
It has to be a full plan that we can say,
Correct.
and maybe it is, okay, we fix the track, because we wouldn't even consider putting turf there. We'd go somewhere else, but we need that long-term plan for athletics. We do it for other departments, we need to do it for athletics, and
I'll meet,
I am more
I'll
than
meet
willing
when
to
and
sit on
where
any
I'm
committee you
there.
want.
I would love it.
You can have your turn back, then I
Thank
have
you.
I
another
would
question.
amen.
But please,
Angelo?
please put that on your future agenda items, and let's,
How about you get a couple people from every boosters group?
however he wants to do it, I will support him anyway to
Okay.
look into a plan, to start creating that plan, because I think there's a lot of community fighting over track, turf.
Correct.
I want to
Correct.
move it forward.
Okay.
However way. You call me.
I will
I'll-
start
I'll help as-
recruiting.
Any way I can.
She's first on your list.
And you are,
That's fine.
congratulations, you're on the list.
I'm thank you. I want to be. That's-
Yes.
How often are we checking football helmets for
We check them every year.
impact?
They go out
You
every
check
year.
them every year?
They go out every year. They have
Okay.
to be, they have to be
How often are we
NOxy sealed.
replacing them? They're
We don't
replacing them every year, ongoing?
We don't get them back if they don't pass the test.
Okay, so this leads into my next question. Football is basically the only sport that we supply helmets for, am I correct?
That we supply for, yeah.
Yes. What other sports do we have?
We have-
Lacrosse has
We have-
helmets,
We have
correct?
lacrosse helmets, yes,
How
and
do
hockey.
we know,
And softball
and hockey?
And
helmets.
softball
softball.
helmets. Right.
So how do we know when these are no longer any good?
So we're only obligated to do the football helmets. We can, and I can budget for it, we can do, say, every other year, we can do hockey and lacrosse, and we can check them.
You
But we
see
don't
where-
we only do football.
Right, but you see where I'm going
Yeah,
with this.
I'm fine with it.
I mean, we make sure that the football players' heads are safe, but we got hockey players, we got softball players, we've got baseball players.
School buys softball helmets. And
We buy the
baseball
helmets, yeah, we buy it.
What about,
have-
well, I know you
We
don't buy
buy it.
lacrosses.
We don't buy lacrosse.
Right. So, right there, how do you know that that kid's on the field protected?
The helmet that they have has to have the stamp on it. They can't
got-
play without the stamp
It's a
on it.
certified helmet.
But do you check them, honestly?
I'm relying on my coach and my trainers to let
I
them
mean,
know.
I just,
I think the coaching official would,
Yeah.
they do in any other sport.
Boy,
Yeah.
they
no,
do
they
it.
don't.
I mean,
I mean, I don't know if the
They
coach
don't-
says, I'm not
maybe
saying.
not in lacrosse, but they do it in
Officials
they did in
officials don't check
softball.
the helmet.
I'm
Are you
baseball.
saying a helmet every
Officials
single
do not
bat?
check anything, trust me.
So-
They
I'm
don't.
gonna hope you as a
softball and
parent are
baseball.
putting your kid in a stamped helmet.
And I am. However, I know that there are families that can't afford them, and they're getting the hand-me-down of the kid that played 3 years ago, and it's coming down.
That's my concern, because some of these kids are really priced out of these games, let's
Okay.
face facts.
Yeah,
I mean,
how
tennis
much-
racket, it costs me.
That's one of the things that I want to lead into with,
Sure.
with my question is, we have all these sports. Each one of these sports is cost different. As we can elaborate, we've seen some of the prices. Hockey is a very expensive one. You know, if you want to look at it as cost per
Sure.
member.
Sure.
Now we have sort of out-of-pocket expenses of what we would expect a contributing family of a student that wants to participate in there. At least from my viewpoint, I would like to see that dollar amount be consistent across, you know, the sport being agnostic, so that each family member is experiencing the same, you know, cost for their child to play a given sport. And so how do we deal with something like that?
That's tricky, I mean, because, like you said, each one of them has its own nuances. But I think if we're looking at trying to outfit, for example, everybody in helmets for lacrosse and hockey and paying, and then they have to wear those, that's a conversation that we're gonna have to have. That's gonna be a pretty big ticket.
But you couldn't, you know, I mean, at least I wouldn't support, you know, having like, you know, one sport pay more. You know, I'm just pulling out numbers here for illustration purposes.
Right.
But if it's like $500 to play sport X, and then the other one that's also, you know, being supplied equipment, then it's $100. That's
Right,
not
it's-
fair.
It's
You know,
ki-
you would
yeah, it's
wanna
kind of
see
hard
it-
to do. We'd really have to look at that.
Yeah.
And then you have, like, for example, I mean, I grew up playing hockey too, and, you know, I want to wear my helmet, it's approved, now you're making me wear your, like, in football, it's pretty cut and dry. You know, you have to send your helmets out every year, and, like, I don't know how many I get back sometimes. Like, I get a report in July that, Angelo, you lost 12 helmets that are either aged out, because in football, it's a 10-year life. Whether you use it or not, that's the other piece that you have to understand. So once you purchase the helmet, whether you used it or not in the first 2 years, it's year 3 for that helmet. And there's a big data spreadsheet about it. So for example, I think I lost 10 or 12 helmets this year that either aged out or, you know, they too many dings or whatever, didn't pass the test. So I don't even get them back. Like, I don't have, it's not our call as, well, we can keep that one and that one's not good. You send them out, they send them back with the report, and it's non-negotiable. So yeah, it'd be a little bit tricky, but we can look at that.
I can appreciate what you're saying, but I just think the reality is each sport, I mean, some sports are just more expensive
Yeah.
than others,
Sure.
and some of the equipment that's needed,
No,
It just-
I understand.
it-
You know, that's needed. Like you know,
Like if you-
if
if
you
you're-
take a football player and you look at the pads, the helmets, the uniform, and all that stuff, it would come up to be a certain amount of dollars for that. But if you're asking, you know, what is a family's contribution that would be for somebody that's playing football, for example, it would be X. If you take another sport, soccer, lacrosse.
I think that even that varies. I mean,
Tennis or
when
something?
families commit to playing a sport, they kind of inherently know what costs go with that. But there's, you know, I mean, somebody might have a pair of $40 cleats on the soccer field. Somebody might have $240 cleats on the soccer field. So I mean, there's
there's going to
different.
be that variation, but
And then
I mean, if we have a player that wants to play a sport such as lacrosse, where you we're not providing sticks, and we're not providing anything but a mouth guard, in the uniform.
You get a mouth guard?
There's a box of very basic mouth guards that go out to all the
We give you the
players.
basic one. If you want something higher than that, you go get it.
Exactly. Everybody gets a mouth guard for
I can
every
tell you
sport.
that where
The
they
$20
are too.
this is on my
I
pocket.
can tell you where they are too.
We're not leaving any athlete behind, though. I mean, if we had somebody that wanted
We
to
have,
play,
we have many cases, not a lot of cases, but we have cases where if a kid really wants to play, we're gonna make sure he plays.
No, and that's,
I'm just gonna tell, and again,
That's
without,
good.
without going into a lot
mean-
of detail, if we have kids that really wanna play, we're gonna make sure they play.
Those of us involved in the sports too, when we know kid, like, here's a field hockey stick, here's a lacrosse stick, like,
Sheila?
Can I?
Yeah?
Okay. All right.
I won't talk.
Congratulations on your new office. I hear you. It's lovely and you
Come
have
on
a
by,
window.
come on by, you gotta take a
You have a
tour.
window and everything
I
now.
have a window, I can actually see the field.
Angela, long time coming. I'm thrilled for you.
You ask me if it's raining tomorrow, I will be able to answer you.
Long time coming, and I'm thrilled for you. It's about time you got that. Really, seriously, I'm very happy for you.
Could have answered that in the gym before we got the roof fixed, right?
I really am. It's been so long you've been in
You're
that
all
dungeon.
welcome. 50-cent
I'm
tour.
just- Congratulations on that. My big point that I wanted to come back to was,
Sure.
if you think you have something and you need something, can you come back to us? I
Yes.
welcome it.
Yes.
I welcome it. If there's
Yes.
something you need, no, but if you've got money left over like this, there isn't any reason why you should be back behind in your uniforms.
did the middle school field hockey B team get rid of those kilts yet?
We're working on it,
All right, Sheila, that's what we want next.
we're working
The
on it,
kilts gotta go.
we're working on it.
Fine kills.
They don't even fit.
I would like a plan. I would like, there's something going on. We need to know about it. That's all.
Okay. Meltzer?
Great, well, thank you. I apologize for missing your
No,
part of it. But I was curious, did we discuss hockey and did we get direction?
We haven't, yet, I was gonna
Thought we had it.
finish that. So we, obviously, we have concerns with our hockey program right now. The numbers are low. And I've met with parents and we've shared our concerns. I was asked to come up with a couple of options and do some research and come up with some information. So basically what I have found right now, so we have spent, and I kind of know it by heart. Last year, varsity hockey, all told, we spent a little over $32,000. We got great kids. We've struggled with numbers for the last several years. Right now, we've got about 16 kids signed up on a list, but we all know that that doesn't mean they're all going to come and play. We also have some kids that have never played hockey before that are on that list. I don't know if they're going to play or not. The reality, and I'm just being honest with everyone, the reality is I don't know, we may have 12 or 13 kids. I don't know. I don't know. And the problem that we're running into right now is that I can't really secure ice, and I don't feel comfortable securing ice because I get the rink manager is saying, Angelo, I know your situation, and if I give you ice and you sign the contract, you're gonna owe the ice, whether you finish or not.
Can I just jump in real quick? So that was the thing, so we wanna, if we buy the ice, we own the ice. So my next question was, like, if we didn't have hockey and we own the ice, could we have like a free skate night for Timberlane kids? And that was not something they said we would be able to do, because it's hockey.
Why, everybody just all of a sudden the honorary,
Oh, I'm saying if we-
So-
Sublease the ice?
So,
But I say that only because if we pay for if we have to prepay the ice, so even if we don't play, we still have to pay for the ice. So we would have we'd have ice time that we wouldn't even be using. I guess my question was, would there be any use of the ice for us if we paid for it and then we couldn't use it? And he said that we couldn't.
the bigger problem that you're gonna run into is if they give me ice for my schedule of home games, let's start there. That's a 2-hour block. That's, I don't know, it's pretty expensive. It's like 600 or something bucks for the 2 hours. And they don't want to tie up, no one wants to tie up the 2 hours that they know they can get the money on. I mean, ice is at a premium. What I'm concerned about is, I'm not comfortable agreeing with our money. I don't think that's my place. to roll the dice. I was never a gambler, so I'm struggling with, I can't commit. I need direction. I need help with that. Now, I was asked to bring options to the table, because here's the good news. I believe that we have, I think it's like 22 kids down at the middle school that are playing hockey in grade 6, 7, and 8, playing hockey. We're getting kids, and if they come and they want to play, you know, the future looks better than the present. And I'm happy about that. So I really don't, I want to do something. These are great kids. They've worked really hard, and they've struggled with the numbers, but they're great kids. And I really wanted to create something for them to play hockey and represent the school this year. I don't want to drop it. So one of the options that I have is that we could play in a weekly league. It's a sub-varsity league, but it's a good league. It's a strong league, and seniors are allowed to play in it. A lot of Mass schools, a lot of New Hampshire schools, right at the ice center. They usually play every Sunday. The total cost to belong to that league would be $4,750, so just under $4,800. It's going to include your game ice. It's going to include your officials. We don't have to pay for transportation. We don't have to pay for police details. These kids can get out on the ice and still wear our Timberland shirts and play. So if we only have 12 or 13 kids, they're playing against kids more equal instead of, 18-year-old varsity high school kids. And again, if you say, hey, listen, let's start the season with 12 or 13 kids and make the commitment and tell the guy, to take the ice. I'm just uncomfortable. I don't feel that I don't think you're authorizing me to do that unless you're authorizing me to do that. So that's a concern of mine. But I did want an option. I was trying to find an option for these kids to play, and I think that might be a good one.
Let's ask the question, like, what do we?
Yeah, I
what do we
need
want
direction.
to
I
do?
need help.
Right, so, Sean, people.
Sue?
Oh, thank you. I think you need to build for the future. If you've got 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that are playing private league, because we don't have a middle
Right, we don't
school,
have, yeah.
right. It'd be great to kind of set that up so that there'd be an ongoing group. So I'm in favor of a weekly league where they could play once a week, get some ice time. Would we provide a coach or
Yeah,
a?
so a couple of things,
Chaperone.
just so that you know, a couple of things. We still, no matter what we do, if we have hockey, we have to hire a coach.
Yeah.
We need to hire a coach. We need to make a commitment in one way, shape, or form, either the varsity thing, Ange, go get it, or Ange, we want to do the other league. Either way, I got to get on the phone and start calling these rinks. I also have to call my opponents, because right now, they're, hey, Ange, we're supposed to play you, but if we're not playing you, got to tell me so I can play somebody else. So we're really kind of up against it, and I just need direction. Like I said, my big thing is I really don't want them not to have an option to play something this year, because I think they're great kids and they work hard, and that might be a good alternative. And again, if we say we'd save probably like $12,000, and I'm probably going to turn that $12,000 around if we do that, and I'm going to put it towards gymnastics, because I didn't budget for gymnastics. So I would do that, and kids can play hockey. We got the gymnasts going. It might be a good 1-year stopgap.
Does the house league, does that include any practice ice time, or are they just playing?
I would get us, because it's easier for me to grab like an hour here and an hour there. I could do that. And they would be willing to help me. And if the ice center, for example, told me, hey, I don't have much ice for you, we've gone to Methuen and we've skated. I've already called that guy. I've called Valley Forum to see if they'll give me some ice. We'll create, because we want these kids to do skills and drills and practice.
That's it, I don't want
I
them
don't want
walking
these
out
kids
on a
just going out there
Sunday.
on Sundays. This is still high school.
Yeah.
They're playing against Andover.
Well-
They're playing against good schools.
And so, I don't mean to jump in, but our plan would be to get right back into, to build right back into a D1 program or a
Right,
D2.
because
That's kind of where I'm
The new-
going, right?
The
Is-
new classification cycle is coming up. So if I can create an opportunity for these kids to have somewhere to play this year, the new cycle starts next year, and we could plan to do something with them again, and we can still explore other opportunities too. So we can still buy time to a long-term
But
solution.
isn't it the classification is not really the issue? The real issue is just sheer numbers.
But it's, right, but it's,
You
but
don't
it's,
want 'em
all-
playing.
but it's two things.
No, I understand
It's-
that part of it, but
It's two things. So after this season, after this year, a new schedule will get made along with a new classification. And again, truth be told, I mean, we've tried to get some co-op schools together because we thought that might help us, and that's fallen through a little bit on us. We weren't successful. Maybe next time we would be, maybe more schools. Hockey, a lot of schools are in closer to our boat in hockey. So it might work out for us that way, and if not, I have some other decisions that we would make too.
Okay,
So
Sheila?
lem-
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done, but.
So we go with the house league, we get some practice ice time. I'm making the assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, we wouldn't be beholden to any NHIAA.
No,
So.
I've already communicated with them. They'd be fine with it.
So there's an opportunity now, we know we have some feeders coming up from the middle school to incorporate them into a
I still
practice program?
I still can't play the middle schoolers with the high schoolers.
Not play them, but bring them into a practice session.
That I can ask. That I would have to ask.
Look at it as developmental opportunities for those middle school kids. It gives a different feel to the practice environment, right? We have inter-squad
Right.
scrimmages.
The one thing that I'm encouraged by in the parent meetings that I had with middle school parents, which I think is a good thing, the plan was to try to get all of these kids to play together. You're all in 4 towns, you're all playing in different leagues, you're all playing with other people, there's no cohesion. They have tried to get together to play, which I think is gonna be, if they're successful with that, that's gonna be a very positive thing for us. So,
Okay, Sheila?
How do the parents feel about this Sunday league? Have you brought it to them yet? Have they?
I
given you
broached the
anything?
subject at the last meeting that we had. I don't know if they'll accept it totally or not, I don't.
There was no reaction, there was no,
The
hey,
first
we still
reaction
want-"
was, we didn't know about this before, and I said, well, that's because I've been doing research, and I found out that it's something that would be doable. And again, I don't know, if kids say, hey, I don't want to play, I mean, look, we're giving you an opportunity, I don't know what else.
Our guarantee was, we want to provide hockey, right? We're gonna have hockey. Ideally, we'd like to continue with what we're doing, but we don't have the numbers, but I'm not sure how this option will feel to them either.
I don't know.
Some will be
That's
disappointed.
what I guess I'm saying.
I don't know.
is I don't know if
It's
this
another
option will
option,
even.
is what I was asked to provide options, I'm giving you another option, I don't know,
Okay. Jen?
Once you give up that ice time spot that you have, how difficult will that be to get back?
enormously. Hockey ice is.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
Is so difficult. It's
I
difficult
mean,
now.
I
'cause-
understand not wanting to invest
Listen, we're
that money
behind
and
it right
not
now.
know,
We're
but-
behind right now. Ice is going left and right. So my thing is whatever it is we're gonna say we're gonna do, tomorrow I would get on the phone and start calling and saying, listen, honor the varsity schedule, or listen, we're gonna do this league, or hold a spot for us in this league, and then we'll send out to people and say, you need to commit by this day so that I know I have enough kids to play. I mean, I'm trying, to keep it going, because I think the future, I think we're gonna have it.
We wanted you to be aware of the gamble. If we just go ahead and do this varsity
Yeah,
schedule,
I don't- I'm not
It's a little
confident.
bit of a gamble. We're not confident that we'll be successful. And it's not about winning hockey
I-
games.
listen,
It's just about
we got great
fielding a
kids.
team and,
Keeping-
spending money and keeping it
rolling
going.
and looking forward, right.
yeah, so that's the risk. I think that's why we want to know what we want to do so that he can execute.
I mean, I don't wanna, my fear, I tell the rink guy, hey, listen, we're gonna play varsity hockey and don't worry about it, we're gonna pay you right now. And then I'm sitting right here in January, because we only have 8 kids, because we got 2 injuries, God forbid, and 2 kids quit, and someone else, whatever, and now we can't
moves.
play, and I'm looking at you, and you're looking at me going, you committed $17,000 of my money to, the district's money to hockey without us? I can't do that.
I mean, I think some kids probably will be disappointed in the Sunday. I think other kids might be grateful to be able to play, but I mean, looking at it as a 1-year kind of stopgap to hold these players and keep them playing and keep their skills sharp, I mean, I do think it's a good opportunity.
I heard loud and clear from people, which I understood. I mean, I'm a parent too, and, our kids they want to play hockey.
Play,
They just want to play hockey. When December, January, February roll around, if there's nowhere for them to play hockey, like, that's
Yep.
the worst scenario. Now, I don't know if they say, no, we don't want to do it or whatever, but, like I said, it's a tough one.
Okay. You had your hand up earlier. You all set?
I think I'm all set. I mean, are we ready to just move forward with
Can I-
what the
Some more
recommendation is, or?
Okay. Krista was.
So if we do it for 1 year, we can get back into the NHIA rotation.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
What if we decide it has to go 2 years?
Then-
And we're in that middle of that cycle, can we get back in then, or do we have to wait 3
Yeah.
years to get into that?
Yeah, if I was starting a new team,
Okay.
which
So-
is what it would be called, it would be a
Okay.
new team.
So they'd
I
have to
would
let
get
you
a
back
schedule.
in the
My-
middle of their rotation?
Right.
We won't be told, no, you have to wait till the next
No,
rotation
no,
to
they
come
wouldn't
back
say
in.
that. They would say, we'll get you a schedule.
Okay. I mean, just my opinion on it is we have to provide something. I mean, you have students coming in that think that we have hockey, that are planning to play hockey, that if we had told them before we don't have hockey, they would have the chance to go find a school that does or transfer, and now they're coming into this. So at this point, we have to do something at some level. Again, committing, I know ice time's expensive, but to hear, off the top of your head, you said you spent 32,000 on that one sport. Which, that's a lot of money if it comes down to, like you said, 8 or even 10 kids. That's a lot of money. And I don't know, I would be very curious to see, Angela, just this, because I didn't know what we spent on hockey. I would be curious to see sport by sport what we are spending, just for an idea kind of what Sean was saying, just a concept of how many players do we have in that sport and what is the overall cost.
We can
If you
get
could
that.
give us that breakdown, I'd be very curious,
I
because
can-
that helps justify,
We can do an executive summary with the
that's
costs,
fine,
but-
yeah, I don't
I can give you
need
those.
to have you back in for that.
No, I can provide it for you.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
But, that would provide a justification for what we're saying, too. If we're saying, look, we have 12 players and we're spending 32,000, where we have another program where we have 80 players and we're only spending 15,000. It gives me a little more confidence in making the decision to go forward, but, I understand where people might not be happy about not playing in NHIA or division, but we're offering something. And again, like you're saying, if they're playing Andover and whatever, these are
good teams, by
these
the
are
way.
good teams. And I went to a couple
is
hockey
gonna
games
be-
last year, and they struggle. So I think they actually will have better playing experience and opportunity to learn playing against teams. Potentially at that level.
Trust me, they're
and they're
really
playing.
good.
Right, they're playing, and I think, it might not be the best solution for them. They would prefer this, but the fact that we're offering something in what we see could be a very tough year. And I know getting the ice time back will be tough, but
Well, I think,
hopefully,
the other piece that, and again, I have to hire a hockey coach.
Yeah.
And sometimes the hockey world is a very small world, and sometimes if you hire someone, I don't know who yet, but sometimes when you hire a hockey coach, they have an affiliation with a rink, and you have an easier opportunity to get ice. Sometimes that happens.
These are two very different jobs. This job, the Sunday League job, might be more appealing than perhaps taking over a Division I program that has little to no chance of winning. I also wanted to give Angelo, some credit, right? So he brought this up last March into early April, for the reason you talked about. If we're not going to have this next year, they should know sooner than later.
Yeah.
It's as much my fault as anybody else, because I kept saying we need to have hockey. We kept saying let's hope we can get some more kids. Let's keep trying. So he's at a point now where he has to do one or the other. So
The issue, and just full disclosure, and I know this is not always met with agreement, but just so that you know, I don't care how many kids we have, we gotta be careful. There's a couple of kids that have never played hockey before and don't have equipment. They're on that list. So if they do come out, I can't, no coach is gonna automatically throw a kid like that right on the ice on a varsity game or even a sub-varsity, but we gotta be real careful. This is hockey.
There's
We're not
injury. They're gonna
talking
get laid out
about,
in the corner.
But
this is.
let's go on. Let's take a leap here. The kids that signed up because they thought they were signing up to play
Yeah.
varsity skip. Other kids may be interested in this more of a Sunday league because it's a little less formal and
Maybe.
it may not be as intimidating to join, right? Oh, I can go learn how to play hockey. So you might get a few more kids.
You might.
I think we got all the kids we were going to get based
Yeah.
on the other list.
Yeah,
This
I
is
will,
still
I will
different.
say though, just because I know this league, these are really, really good hockey teams. the sub-varsity, Andover, Central Catholic, I mean, we're talking about like high-quality competition.
Yeah, it's not a pickup league.
Right, this is not like rec hockey. This is high school teams from Mass and New Hampshire, and those kids are out on the ice trying to prove that they belong on the varsity team of those Division I schools. So, you know, I think it's gonna be good hockey. I think it's gonna be really good hockey. So if we can do something to keep these kids on the ice, I'm all for it. That's all I'm saying.
So are we in agreement that we think the Sunday?
Yeah, I had a couple more questions.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I like the idea of the house league because, you know, I'm a hockey guy, so the thought of someone not playing hockey that really wants to play just kills me. How many players did we have last year on the team? Was it 14?
So, and this is a good example, and I may be off by one or two. So your sign-up list had, whatever, 18, 19 kids. A couple of them never came at all.
Yep.
Then we lost, you know, 2 more, like in the first 2 weeks of the season.
And you might have kids that are ineligible,
Then we
too.
had an injury. We had an ineligible, you know what I mean? Like, you have that stuff. So the natural attrition, I mean, even if we're starting at 16 with kids, some kids that don't have any experience, that doesn't mean you're gonna end with 16, and that's a lot on these kids. And
Yeah.
by the way, I gotta tell you, these kids, they work hard. Last year, 2 lines and a goalie for the most part, and a couple of subs, because we were already committed, you know, to having the season. I mean, this time we tried to be honest right away, because my biggest fear is that hockey players are gonna have nowhere to play in the winter. And that's gonna be a very lonely, lousy time. So this hopefully gives them a chance.
How does, I don't know how the ice center does it. Some rinks, they do first right of refusal. So, you know, if we had ice time last year, going into this season, they hold that ice time for us. And
Well-
until we say we refuse it,
The problem,
is it a land grab?
it's a land grab.
Okay.
That's a great way to put it. It's a land grab. So we've begged our way to stay at the ice center, because I've had a relationship with the owner for a while. So he's already gotten rid of like 2 other high schools from New Hampshire to make room for more Massachusetts schools. We're kind of the last one hanging on by a thread. And I think I shared a couple of times with you some conversations that we've had, that he's like, look, I can't guarantee I'm gonna give you what I gave you last year. And by the way, it's been less. When we first started, we would have like 4 days of practice ice and 2 game days and a day off. Then we went down to 3 days of practice ice, and we used to have an hour and 20 minutes. Now it's 50 minutes. I mean, it's, you know, supply and demand. We are not a very attractive, you know, client right now.
And then the last one, and then I'm done. Did you have more options, or was that the only one?
The only thing that I can think of is this now. I
Okay.
mean, we tried to do some co-op things, and without getting into a lot of detail right now, but we tried some things and it
The
didn't work.
reason was we wanted an option where seniors could play.
Yeah.
That was the thing. So some of the JV schedule only, seniors were eliminated, right?
Yeah, when I called the NHIA and I called the ice center, and the ice center said, no, we'll have some seniors playing.
Because we have
too."
3 seniors that are really, are
We
serious
have, I
hockey.
think, 3, we may have 4 now.
Okay, or 4. We have
But
3 or 4
anyway,
serious senior
they can
hockey.
play. And even they'll know that this is real hockey. I mean, this is real hockey, so.
And I didn't mean that to come across like I didn't like
No,
the
no,
option. It was
no,
bad.
not at
I just
all.
when you were going
Listen,
into it, it sounded like you had.
I've
others.
been on the phone with other ADs. I'm open to any suggestions. I tell people all the time, if I'm missing something, tell me.
Well, that was a priority, that was a priority, at least for me, was I didn't want to come up with an option that eliminated those 3 or now 4 kids that have been part of the program.
Yeah,
I
we
thought
wanna
that would be a
play 'em.
lousy, and those are parents that are very involved in the program.
Great,
I
great.
just hope, to Sheila's point, I hope that they embrace this and love this opportunity. I just hope, if
You
that's
know,
the direction we're going.
I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Okay, does anybody not support moving in that direction? Guess that's your answer.
Awesome, thanks. I only have one other quick thing on, it's not about hockey, it's about gymnastics. Did we, and again, I apologize for not being part of the discussion, did we talk at all about gymnastics? and
I
starting?
was just sharing that I'm setting up interviews next week. I have a couple of candidates for coaches, and I actually have a couple of facilities, and I don't want to say too much right now, but we should be, within the next couple of weeks, we should have a facility and a coach, which would be great.
Excellent. Now, the question was facility and coach, and we talked a little bit about this. Depending on who the best coach is, they typically are affiliated with one gym or another, right, or whatever, right? And
Yeah, we've kind of gone on visits. We've done a couple of site visits and done some talks to people, so.
but that was my question, is if one facility is better than the other for us, for our kids, where our kids want to go, but that's not where the coach is from, I think that those are the options we got to look at.
Yeah.
Because I want our kids to be
Yeah.
happy where they're going, and I want the coach to.
The thought process would be, as far as like kind of a process for me, is I'd like to hire the coach, then I'd like to look at the facility. It might be the same, who knows? Then I'd like to get with, kids and parents and make sure that we're kind of all up and running. Remember that in gymnastics, once you hit the number 5, you're a team. If you have 5 kids, you are a team. If you have 4 kids or less, you're individuals.
We have a critical mass of kids,
We
right?
have like 9 or 10 signed up already. So even if not all 9 or 10 come, you're probably I'm guessing you're gonna land at least 5. I'm guessing.
And I was asked a question recently too. This would be for girls only, that boys can't participate in girls' gymnastics and girls can't participate
That
because
is
the
correct.
events are different. I had a couple parents reach out to me to ask me if boys would be able to play if we started gymnastics. That would have to be a completely
The
separate program.
NHI only has recognized girls gymnastics.
I don't know
There
if
is
you
no,
guys had
there is no
any,
boys gymnastics.
any questions at all?
Right, anymore.
Back in the day.
Back in the day when I was at
We had a
Revere, we
team
used to
here
compete
tonight.
against New Hampshire schools.
Which is interesting, because the competitive cheerleading thing, the boys are part of that program, right? The boys.
Yeah, years ago, Massachusetts schools and New Hampshire schools would compete in boys gymnastics. That's disbanded. That's not enough schools.
And the cheer is very much like gymnastics now. I mean, it's, right, so. I didn't know if you guys had any questions about gymnastics, or if you're comfortable, because that was the other new program.
I don't have any questions. Anybody else?
No, you went through it pretty well.
Oh, great, so, sorry I missed that, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Fantini.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Move on to our next one, bullying update.
Yeah, it's kind of fine print
I was gonna
here.
say, I'm like, about to have Sean read it for me, but it's as long as it's lift up to you.
There you go.
Make sure it's the lift. Yep, okay, cool.
Good evening. Again, I'm Susan and Dan, and we're here to present more information regarding bullying that you've requested. Dan's going to start with an update of the bullying training, so that you have an update of the 2 years. And at the end, or during it, we'd be very happy to answer any questions that you have.
So, as Susan said, we just want to kind of provide an update of kind of what's happened with No Bully since its inception last fall, as well as kind of some of the things that are coming up, some with firm dates, some we're still working on. So our first interaction with No Bully came last November when the representatives visited that month's TILA meeting and worked with the administrators. And then that same night, they conducted a parent training. Over the winter, No Bully leadership teams were formed at each school, started kind of working on the different initiatives that No Bully talked about. As we got to March, the reps returned, met with each building and their leadership team, and also presented No Bully to all the district staff on that March 24th PD day. And then they returned, as obviously work continues on with those leadership teams, kind of identifying staff and key moments, working on social emotional training, different kind of school culture initiatives, things kind of that's facilitated through No Bully. Over the summer, they also returned to Attila in May, again, to kind of start to frame the work for 2019, 2020. Over the summer, actually just a couple weeks ago, we had a few dozen staff members trained as solution team facilitators so that we can begin doing solution teams during the 2019-2020 school year. Just next week, during our professional development day of the district today, they'll be returning to the social emotional learning training for all the district staff. So we'll be able to catch all the staff that are either new or missed out on the first training. This time, all the paraeducators will be involved as well, which is fantastic. training gets videotaped, the bus drivers get a hold of it. You know, we really want anybody that has anything to do with kind of Timberline to make sure they're getting the training, so the same messaging, same interrupting behavior is kind of caught by everyone involved, so that, you know, there is no time where that initiative isn't kind of in action. The reps will be meeting with the leadership teams of the buildings. You know, a lot of the work is kind of now at each individual building. It looks different at different age groups. They return, I think they have scheduled dates already with September, and kind of a window we're looking to schedule specific dates of the schools in the end of October, early November. And those are, they call them their coaching sessions. And then as the year goes on, there'll be additional solution team facilitator trainings, maybe whether we need to add more individuals, you know, kind of process out how things are going, as well as more building meetings throughout the school year. And as the year comes to an end, we start to kind of worry about next steps, how to kind of continue that on beyond our contract with No Bully. Yep.
Sean, can I interrupt?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you go back to
Yep.
that one, Dan? Any thought about having another one of those parent nights? The one we had at the middle school, I thought was really, it was well-attended. I know there's a lot of staff there, but, you know, we've got more parents coming in, and now we're using the buzz language, if you will, you know,
Right.
Building teams and solution teams and coaching staff, that we get that same language going with a new set of parents, or maybe some of those parents will come back and say, hey, you know, I see some good stuff happening.
Yeah, so they've been pretty flexible with us in terms of kind of things they can do while they're here. So I know that, I believe that they held a second one at Atkinson when they came back in May at the request of the Atkinson principal. So I would imagine that that's something that we could definitely
Yeah, I'd
approach
like
with
to
them.
see
I don't want to
something.
speak for them and commit for them, but I would imagine that's something that we could definitely, based on the flexibility that they've had in past conversations. So I would certainly be interested in seeing that happen, yeah.
Okay, so in terms of, in your packet, I know there were questions regarding the eligibility determinations. Just to review for some, but also to restate, the bullying form is filled out, and the people who determine whether it's bullying or not are actually the principals or the principal designee. So if you could please turn in your packet to page 5. It's really the investigation determination, and it goes through the process that a principal would go through to determine eligibility. And the questions 1, 2, and 3 are there to say either you're going forward with the investigation is going to stop. And this coincides actually with the information that principals report on an annual basis regarding the school safety report, which is part of your executive summary that we included in your packet for the 2 years that you wanted, pre-no bully and then post. If there are any questions on that, we've kind of given you this form before, but we've never really taken a look at it and looked at the wording. But the wording aligns with the New Hampshire state regulation or law in terms of looking at if an incident of bullying is reported, we need to take a look at it and investigate. Sure.
The question I've added here on your page here, if you look at each one of these columns, the reported bullying is equal to the investigated as bullying number.
What page are you on?
She's on executive summary.
Oh, the executive summary, okay.
Right here.
I thought that was page 5, I'm sorry.
No, it's 5 of the
5, she's talking about the
investigation report.
form.
Oh, the form, I'm sorry. I can wait until we get to that part. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. I can answer your question. It's on the executive summary, because they're all tied in, Sean.
Okay.
And so, just restate the question now that I have the right page.
Is that the reported bullying number is equal to the investigated as bullying, so that the cynic that I often play is that you would expect that the reported bullying number to be the larger number, and then as you did an investigation, there's a subset of them that have been categorized as, and they were truly bullying. But when
great-
those two numbers are equal, they're just something that just doesn't pass, the sniff test.
Well,
That's a substantiated number.
that's right.
Yes, but that's substantiated, but if you get it reported, so everyone that was reported as bullying got diagnosed
No,
as.
they were investigated.
They were investigated, but they only substantiated as bullying. So they're not, just because they're investigated as bullying doesn't mean they're bullying.
They're
I
just,
see what you're saying, but that's.
We had this conversation
yeah, we
last
had this
time.
conversation.
I said
They're-
the same
they're
thing as
just-
you.
Take out the word bullying. Reported, investigated, substantiated.
They're just trying to verify that they investigated every reported
Okay,
bullying
and then, well,
situation.
then, yeah, then they should be.
Not a
Well,
bad idea
I
either.
think
The
your
law.
confusion is what I was saying last time we met. I see reported bullying, and to me, that's how many parents came and reported that their child was being bullied. That's what
Correct.
you're thinking that number is. And you said, no, that's not really what that number is. That number is really of those who said their child was being bullied, did the principals determine actually were truly allegations of bullying that needed to be investigated, right?
And at the end, so if you look down to the middle school in 17-18, there were reported 42 incidents, and then we investigated all 42. Of all of those, the actual substantiated bullying by the law was 5.
But there could have been a number above that,
Correct.
calls made, teacher reported, I don't know, 60. And then decided 42 were bullying, investigated, and then substantiated.
Well, the number above that might be peer-peer conflict
Yeah,
reports.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah,
different number.
I think it's, in that initial conversation as a report, sometimes, there's details that
Right.
show that it's not bullying in the initial report. So I mean, I can't speak for the people at the building level, but, sometimes I'm sure there's conversations that kind of deal. And that doesn't mean something's not getting investigated. It just might not get investigated as bullying. It could be getting investigated as
Peer
inappropriate,
conflict,
peer conflict, or I think there's a lot of inappropriate student behavior, harassment, and, in some cases, you might get some more severe discipline in those categories than you do bullying. So,
Okay, Sheila?
Thank you very much for the 17, 18. That's all I wanted to say. I appreciate that.
I just ask about a trend since we're on this page.
Okay.
Because if I look at the middle school from 2017-18, we have 42 reports and 5 substantiated. And then the next year, this past year, we had 2. But when I look at the high school, last year we had 5, but yet this year we've gone up to 23 reports with 2. Is there,
You know what they
These kids
are?
have
They're
moved
bus
on.
incidents. So.
but it's weird that in the middle school it was so high one year and then normal the next year.
Right.
Like you would think there would be some trend among age, and all of a sudden, now at the high school, we were nice and low last year. Well, and then all of a sudden, the 2018-19
thought, but I
numbers
wasn't
shot up. Like, it just kind of,
Well, what has happened is we've actually had bus incidents. And so when you investigate, you get a story from 2, and that grows to 4, and then it grows to 6. And so we, by law, have to put the actual number. So when we look at this data, you bring a great point. When we look at this data and we're trying to say, okay, this was before no bully, and now this is after no bully, there are outliers that we're going to have to really look at the data and say, okay. So what you really are looking at, Kristen, is the 17-18 for the middle school was a bus incident, and then the incident in the high school that you highlighted in 18-19 was yet another bus incident.
so one incident generates potentially 42 claims of
So when
bullying?
you start the investigation, well, I was bullied by this one, and then they go, and you can't, you can't say, okay, this one is a lesser. And that's where we started on the investigation page on 5, because it really clearly says to a principal, here's what you need to look at. And then you have to add in all of those students that are indicating that they are a victim of some kind.
So now you're saying the high school had, I don't want to say normal, but I'm going to use that term. I mean, standard year for 2017-18, but then they had one incident that generated 23.
Right.
Well, I don't know, to
Maybe not
Kristen's point, I
one,
don't think
but-
one incident generated them all, but one
No,
incident
but-
generated probably a series of, you questioned somebody about bullying, well, I did that, well, Kathy bullied me, and then that's the second one on the same incident.
Right.
And so, there's not 23 from that, but I would say there's probably, and I'm
Right.
thinking of, that's the one I'm thinking
Yeah,
of.
it is.
There was
So
8
you're-
or 9 of them in that one.
So, okay, so take the bus out of it. So something happens in school, and a child claims that they're bullied, and we go and we investigate that and come up with a finding, but when we're investigating that, again, the other children involved say, well, it was in response to this, and I was bullied. So we automatically investigate that,
We have to, and if you look at page 5.
but we haven't in the past, so I'm finding that intriguing that you're saying that right now.
I guess I'm not understanding your question then.
Well, without-
I
without-
guess
Well, no, without the specificity, right?
Right.
To her point, I think what started this whole new bully program, and this is to Kristen's point, we're looking for consistency throughout the district, so one building different than another building, and that's where Susan, I think, has come in terms of this program and trying to, for it to be more consistent, because one parent's experience in a particular building may differ, in the past, hopefully, may differ very much. So to your point, if that happened in one building and it didn't happen how, like you just talked about on the bus, but it happened in another building or on a bus like that, it should happen that way everywhere, is
Right.
to the
Right.
point. And that, I mean, let's
And that's-
self-disclose,
Right.
that probably did not happen in the past, right? That
Right.
one site looked at it differently than another and didn't do what Susan just said, didn't look at all the bullying incidents that occurred out of the one incident. They treated that as one incident, not a series of incidents.
Right.
But our hope now with this program is that it'll be handled exactly how you just said. One incident may trigger 8 or 9 incidents, and that number, it'll blow up a number, but
so how are we overseeing that to ensure that that's going to happen?
So the forms that you see, that you have, they're sent to Dan and I, and then we review them. And we review them for a couple of things. So let's go back and look at page.
And oftentimes, we are in communication before we actually receive the kind of final report. You know, obviously, there's some questions mid-report or mid-situation.
well, the point
So
is,
I can only speak
where are
for
the
my
checks and
experience.
balances?
Right.
Well, here's the checks and balances.
Right.
The checks and balances, that's their job, and that's what they're supposed to do. I'll hear about things occasionally, and as soon as I hear about it, where do I go? Right there, and I say, Susan and Dan, get down to that building and make sure make sure this is handled correctly, right? So I guess it's all about when did you know and what did you do,
Right.
right? So, I think people are getting, I think people are more comfortable communicating, and they'll feel more comfortable as things are handled, how everyone views as appropriately, right? So it's about getting a consistent approach so that everyone, and whether I leave an elementary school and go to middle school or go to a high school, that I still feel like this district, this system is responding the same way, no matter what level or what building or what people. And if dissatisfied, please let me know, or certainly reach out to Susan. You let me know it's going right to Susan, and we'll manage it
I
from
think
there.
we'll, like, what I would like to see is along the longevity of this, 4 or 5 years from now, you want to see a projection, and we all know where we want it to go down. So we want to be able to see that. So maybe some other line items added to the respective, columns that we have here, such as number of incidents. Because, we're just finding out tonight that one incident can generate, multiples. And it's not just 1 or 2 extras. It could be 8, 9, 10 extras.
I would only caution, I wouldn't over or under celebrate numbers going down or numbers going up, because we want people to report, we want people to be we want them to be physically and emotionally safe. So more reported, more people working with kids, peer conflict. So I'm not sure that just numbers going down is something to celebrate, because I don't want people not reporting things, or I also don't want it to be, from a cynical perspective, don't want to be like, well, they're not, they're sweeping it under the rug, they're not acknowledging it.
I think maybe is that if a parent gets involved in this with a guardian to report something, this should somehow come as a metric inside these kind of reports to this board, such that their incident isn't lost, even if it was defined as a non-bullying or peer-to-peer.
Right.
I mean, categorize it appropriately, but we don't want to lose that visibility into this, because we might be able to, looking at that data, we can say, yeah, we don't get, the trend going down is good for bullying, but we see more peer conflicts going up. That's not good either.
Right.
No,
So
yeah.
we're
From a
going to have the data in there so that we can assess this and see if this program is doing what we want, and modify it, adjust it, whatever.
I mean, it would be great to have 100%, customer service, parent satisfaction factor, they were satisfied with how it was handled. However, we don't always feel that way when we don't like the outcome, which is fine, but I mean, as long as parents feel like it was consistent, we followed a process, they trust the people that manage this, and everybody is physically and emotionally safe at the end.
Right.
I mean, those are desired outcomes, but
Yeah.
I don't know how we categorize that, maybe we should, I don't know, and report out, you know?
Well, a couple of things, because I think in fairness, there are inconsistencies, and I hear of those a lot when people will say, well, at this building, they did this, this, and this. And so there's a confidential piece to it where I can't say. So this is why we're trying to get that overall consistent piece in the process. When you reported it, did you get action taken? And what was that action? Sometimes I get a lot of calls with discipline, and I have to educate them that the discipline is going to be followed by the student handbook. But if you have students with disabilities, then we have to take a different approach. When it comes to safety, there's non-negotiables. If you're not safe, the rules apply. And then afterwards, with the No Bully program, as well as with the teams of special educators, we work together as the team to implement those necessary behavior pieces that we need to, so the student understands, look, this can't happen. But to go back to your point in the numbers, the other piece is that is what I'm realizing as we go through this is low numbers to me aren't great, because the essence of the human experience is that we're going to have bullying. The piece that's so important about No Bully is that it's a community of people coming together, trying to divert the behavior that was attention-seeking and now bring them back to more appropriate ways to be socially appropriate. So in some ways, I do agree, because as I'm watching this information come forward, but it's more qualitative. And I can share with you one experience that I had with one individual that reported as a victim. After 3 months of helping this individual see exactly what their actions were and the response of others to their actions, they realized that actually they weren't the victim, that they were causing the problem. And so in those interactions, when you're discussing them and you give them the opportunity to see what they're doing, over a 6-month period of time, I worked with that student to say, try this and try it for 2 weeks. And then I want you to come back and tell me how it went. And the student reported that the behavior that she reported as the victim was no longer a behavior that was taking place. So I think the beauty of No Bully, and we've been out, and Dr. Metzler has been out to many superintendent meetings where he's been finding different programs, and I keep saying, no, that's not what we need. And the reason for that is because I feel as though students don't have enough time to discuss things so that they can see, A, somebody else's perspective, but also better understand what they're seeing and what it really is. And I think that's the value in this program. There are pieces of data that we're always going to report, and that's regarding the school safety questions, and I put that in the PowerPoint. Those are the questions every year that we have to answer, and that's actually on the side. But those are the pieces that also align to the law and to what bullying is actually looking at in terms of RSA 193F.
Okay. Kristen?
Just to follow up where I was before, I agree. I don't think you can celebrate high numbers or low numbers. I don't think it's a matter of that, because I think you want people to be able to come forward either way. What concerns me is when I look at these numbers, and I'm hearing that, again, we were out of school last year, and I'm going to say the high school, and I have Principal Woodworth here, so, it was 5 across the board in 2017-18, and all of a sudden 2018-19, it's 23, and 2. And when I look at those numbers, it's staggering to go, how do we go from 5 to 23? But now I'm hearing from you that when you look into one issue, it might generate several. I think that has to be broken down, because if that's the case, I think it's a false number. Like, all of a sudden, why do we have this? And I think it should say, we had 5 complaints, but out of 5, one of these snowballed into an incident, so we had all of this.
Yeah, I think you're looking at those two, like the middle school, high school, there's no way that those two climates were that different in those 2 years.
No, and that's why I'm saying, but that should be explained, because if not, it just gives a false, and I'm not saying to have the number come down.
No.
I'm just saying for the explanation, because the high
about the
school's
story,
not a
not
bad
the
place,
numbers,
and all of a
yeah.
sudden we had a bad year and we're allowing 23 bullying complaints. And that's, to me, the explanation. I would just like to understand that we maybe had, these, but one incident involved, 18 of them, to understand that, because maybe there was one situation where there were 18 victims, or there was one situation where there were 18 bullies with one, and that might just be the explanation that we need. I know Don's squirming back there, so I want to hear this.
Yeah.
There's the report that we go for the state, and then there's our own, what we log
Right.
at the high school, keep records of how kids are disciplined, how things are defined for all the kids involved in that.
Right.
But for the state, you know, they give you pretty clear direction on what gets reported and how. And it isn't as useful perhaps in this setting as something else might be that we take right from our own power school. If the conversation is, well, you know, what types of things actually came of these investigations? So we might have had 15 people disciplined out of one situation for a range of different things.
Right.
The state here for each they'll tell you, regardless of how many kids are involved, for section 4.1, you only write down that as one incident, it's one report. You know, so it doesn't give you a clear picture that this was an enormous investigation that involved, 4 weeks of, really understanding the dynamics of something that might have been going on for 2 years among a group of kids. So we spend a tremendous amount of time trying to research these situations, to be able to define them, to be able to work with the students, the families, to try to turn things around, and to also label what happened accurately.
Because you have a process at the high school, correct me if I'm wrong, but from how I understand it, where the kids can come in, or somebody can come in and fill out a form, and it goes into something that is then looked at. And then
Right.
you determine from there, do we just call them in, how do we handle it, and does it become a peer conflict, or is it something that does escalate at that point in
So
time?
there's a referral, and
Yep.
referral can come from a student, it can come from a witness, it can come from a parent, it can come from any number of things. Some things come over the phone,
Yep.
and we have to transcribe it to some sort of a written piece, whatever. But we try to make sure we have a record of everything that happens, and then we go from there. And so the investigation would be first a determination of, kind of definition, what is the range that this is going to be in? Could this be bullying, harassment? Is it a fight? Is it assault? Is it a cyberbullying piece? It just tried to define what it is, and then we go and we do the appropriate form work, follow through, communicate, notify people where we're at.
So going back kind of like to Jen's comment, you have the parent that calls in and says, my child's being bullied, whether they're using the term appropriately or not, or if it's pure conflict, there's that level of all of those complaints that come in.
Right.
And then it's a level of determining, I mean, you cipher just through many of these things before, not everyone goes to bullying, and you have them all end up in different areas. And I guess I would kind of like to see a little more breakdown of those statistics here, that maybe we have 100 complaints.
Yeah.
5 of them are truly bullying. We investigate all 5, this is what's founded, but then we find maybe 20 of them are unfound, or, and these are pure conflict, and just a better breakdown, because as Sean said, then it gives you an idea of just the trends of what do we need to do to help you in your school. Is there a true bullying issue, or is it more pure conflict and typical stuff that we're seeing, or something of that nature? But when you just see 5 bullying complaints came in, we investigated 5 and 5 were substantiated, that doesn't really give you a true picture. And then, like I said, I look at the next year, it says, well, no, now we've had 23 are investigated, but we've only had 2. So do we have a problem where kids are crying wolf? Or do we, I mean, and that's what I'm saying, I just think
Well,
those
you have
3
ev-
numbers
you have
really
all of
don't
it.
do much.
You have all of it. You have things that are misunderstood by the students.
Yep.
They go home, they react, they tell the parents, so-and-so was bullying me. It turns out really they just lost an argument. The parent gets educated as to what really happened. It takes some time to get at the truth of a situation, because then you have to talk to everybody involved.
Right.
And
It's-
then
and
very
it's
often the parents
time-consuming.
are agreeing, this was not bullying.
Yeah.
There's some pretty poor decisions and behaviors, et cetera.
Yeah.
And some of it's discipline and some of it's not, depending on what we look at with our code of conduct.
I didn't see it in here, but I did have my phone up because I was looking for it. I just wanted to thank you for putting on the websites under the no bullying. When you click on that, there is instructions and a form for parents to easily access to, and I think that was something we asked for, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Anything else that we have on this?
I just have one question, because I heard the comment, I think you said every instance has to be a different approach with these students. So if a student is found to be a bully, I mean, and I understand everyone's different, but my understanding in discussions with you, Dr. Metzler, is we don't do it that way. Every student's, when it comes to this stuff, we deal with it the same way. I mean, discipline and whatnot, everyone has to be, again, and that's the consistency, and they're across the board. If we're doing things differently, or handling them differently, or disciplining differently, or allowing one student to do something different than another, we're sending the wrong message to all the students.
I don't disagree. You're saying exactly how I would say it. I don't want
So
to mix
why do we have a different approach? Because that's not fair. It's not, we're not sending
this-
this clear message.
I'm missing the
saying-
different approach, because
Yeah.
mine is all about
The discip-
consistency and one message.
Right.
Obviously, elementary to middle of high school could be a little bit different about how our administrative staff manages those cases, but aside from manifestation determinations where special ed is involved,
Right.
where right is right and wrong is wrong, if disabilities are involved in bad decisions, then we deal with that from a special ed world, that's a little bit different, but consequences are consequences for bad behavior. And then we should be dealing with them consistently, and that's the message.
That's
So
right.
I don't know where that was I don't know
Yeah,
the
I'm not
communication.
sure what that piece is. I think one of the parts is that I'm trying to say that if a student is on a 504 or an IEP, it's not that the punishment is different or the discipline piece is different, but there may be strategies used to communicate that to a student because of their level of understanding. It's not just 504 and IEP, it would also be developmentally appropriate. So when you look to TLC, they don't have any bullying incidents that are there because it's not meeting the piece of the law. But TLC spends a lot of time with peer conflict and helping to develop the understanding of the way to treat their peers. And there's a lot of work done with our social emotional curriculum in second step. So it's not that we take the IEP and say, well, you don't get punished. No, they get punished. And even within the no bully program, the punishment or the discipline that's required is taken, but then the no bully steps in. So there's not a combining of those two pieces.
And I don't want to confuse people with edu speak either. So manifestation determination, that's typically if a special ed student
Right.
engages in a misconduct. The very first meeting you have is you decide whether or not the disability was the reason that the misconduct occurred. And a lot of times you make that determination that, no, that the fact that you have a reading disability didn't have anything to do with the way you just treated one of your fellow classmates.
Correct.
And so,
Yeah, no, they're
then they get the consequences like anybody with or without the disability. But if the disability was the reason that the misconduct occurred, we need to manage that a little bit differently. And then, even a lot of times, a serious misconduct can take place, and a lot of times, the very first question, they want their student evaluated for special ed. They're looking for special ed services immediately. And that can
That's
complicate the
right.
discipline process too, because then we have to test in a period of time. But, yeah, so I don't wanna
No, you're right.
mix words here in terms of,
No.
you know, we're looking for a very consistent approach.
Well, the consistency, I think, that you also have to address is that, our elementaries are in 4 different, locations, or remember 5, because you have 5 different buildings for that, where you start, everyone funnels to the same, support staff for the middle school and the high school. So you could see where you could get the consistencies there and not, as you start, different branches in different towns, that could be another factor of it.
Those are challenges, and I think, first getting here, and some of you had children in the district and I at the time, we were consistently inconsistent even with the way we graded students. So we were speaking different languages at elementary, middle, and high school. So we have a K-12 approach, we're looking at vertical teams in terms of the way we go about business. The challenge is the different towns, and then you have another challenge is you have different human beings that work, that have different skills and do things. And so we're working on consistency. That's all part of TILA. That's at
That's
Timberlane
right.
Executive Leadership Academy, trying to develop a consistent approach with a consistent team. It's a work in progress. It's not a perfect science. I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
I think programs like No Bully are helping us with a small piece of a bigger picture, because that's just the bullying piece. There's a lot more that goes into this with everything we do. Evaluating staff, how
Right.
we go about curriculum, how we go about everything. We're trying to be consistent, and we're trying to make sure that kids that come through our district are hearing the same message, developmentally appropriate,
Right.
from when they're in elementary through middle and into high school. So That's really the plan.
Yeah.
It's taken a while to root. I think we're on the right path, though.
Yeah, I do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you're gonna work on trying to do more with the staff still?
But,
Kind
I think-
of provide a little more information?
Yeah, I think perhaps, we need to pull together, maybe it's in TILA, or maybe it's, to look at what's the best way. I think we're hearing loud and clear what we're looking to report out on.
Sure.
Look at what this report looks like and say, okay, forget about what the Department of Ed, we have to do that, but that's not as helpful here, to look at what we were more helpful here.
The qualitative piece that I was speaking to is actually the reoccurring themes. Are they, bullying and name-calling? Is it something that's more significant, and taking a look at that? I think that qualitative piece is going to help us, because then when we look at the different pieces that we take on, because in this year 2 of the facilitation, they're now going to be working with students over specific types of things. We don't take on every no bully situation. We take on a few reoccurring themes, work with kids to get that understanding and somebody else's perspective. So I think your point is well taken, that if we do look at the reoccurring themes, that's helpful to us in the building as well as the district level. And then that might need some more training, just to increase awareness, which is why I feel we should be continuing with TPATH.
But I think on a different, I know you're talking about qualitative, and qualitative is how people feel about things.
Right.
I think what they're asking more is, we want the numbers to kind of match up how people feel about things. So we want the quantitative and qualitative things to kind of match. Right now, they feel a little like they don't match, because I looked at those same numbers and I was like,
Yep.
20 to 5 and 5 to 20, and I'm
Doesn't-
like, there's
yeah.
no way that those climates. So qualitatively, that didn't work for me.
Right.
And quantitatively, those numbers were kind of out of whack, and
Yep.
they all have a story
Yep.
to be told. So I think we need to tell the story so that somebody doesn't, so the story's not told inaccurately, or
Right.
I have to make up my own story. There's a story to be told about those numbers. I think that's it, making the qualitative and quantitative kind of match. so
Having
that
more
they're-
rows with metrics in them will indicate that, because if you can say that, 23 people were involved, and that's 5 incidents versus 10 incidents, that's got a different feeling.
Yep.
Does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
Good.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dan.
Enjoy.
Chair, I'm going to ask that we skip, we switch right over to
I was going to be.
transportation so that this
I
lovely
was
lady can go
planning on
home.
doing that. But great suggestion.
Thank you.
I'll give you credit for all of it.
Oh, the
I
poor
thought
thing,
that-
I'm
I thought
staring
that-
at her
I
all
thought that
night and
was
she's
next, so-
yawning and, poor thing.
I've only been up since 6.
Yeah, me too, I understand it.
So just as a disclaimer on, we're having some copier issues. And so you'll have in your packet the maps, 3 of the maps, it was Atkinson, Danville, and Plastow. They're not attached to anything. That's because when the packets went through, they did not copy as colored, and these maps needed to have color. The Sandown one came with color. So that's why you have them in your
That's why I
packet.
was doing a little jigsaw puzzle over here, you saw me.
Yeah, well, I did that, and it's when I realized that, like I said, we're having problems with the copier. So, I wanted to make sure that you all had colored maps, which was
Thank you.
important.
Yes.
Because it was the
It's
whole point of
helpful
it.
to see.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right, well, thank you for having me. I'm Sandy Hotchkins, the Transportation Coordinator. And so typically, I give a review of our bus routing after school starts, so that I can give you clear information of what is actually going on. So keep in mind that tonight is just to present to you what the so-called hybrid routes are looking like for this year. So I can't give you specifics or, how they're working or the times are just estimated. Those are not set in stone. Okay, so just want to make sure that everyone understands that, and I'll be happy to give another report after school starts by the end of September or early October. Okay, because the drivers will be giving me their bus counts and also their actual times, so that we can track this, okay? So the hybrid routes, as they're so-called, I'm not sure if I like that term, but What it means for parents who might be watching that they need to know is that I've been directed that I can add some high school students from stops that would be helpful to create shorter routes. So there are buses that are going to have high school students on middle school buses.
Brian, could you shut the door, please? Thank you.
So part of that is on the letter that has been posted on the website for parents to kind of read, to just kind of know what's going on. I apologize, it got on there as of, I think it was yesterday or today. I don't even remember, one day it's into the next, so I apologize. But it is there for them to look at and understand what is going on at some point. And I have had calls, and I think a lot of the parents are pretty savvy and have figured it out, because I've tried to put the MS or an HS if it's a stop for both, okay? So that is there. So you have gotten the routes, the shortened version, not the full version. You've just gotten the routes that have the stops listed for you with the maps. I realize they're hand maps, but I didn't have time to get them right out of the program. I have been really straight out busy, so I'm hoping that that information is clear to you, and I'd be happy to answer questions on it afterwards. The main points for Atkinson, what I found when I started just adding those outlying high school stops, it was clear that the middle school routes that were existing were not going to be able to handle it as far as times. And the reason for that is because when you add high school kids onto a middle school bus, those high school kids still need to get to school by 7:10. And we had discussed this, and, you know, I thought that it would work out. But as I started doing them, I found it was going to make the middle school runs longer. So I thought it was in the best interest of all the students to eliminate a high school bus in Atkinson, Danville, and Sandown, and make it a middle school, high school bus. So adding it more or less to the middle school mix so that there was more buses to do the coverage of the whole area. I hope that makes sense. So in doing that, Atkinson has two dedicated just high school buses. 117 is one of those buses because it can't have middle school students because it is the CTE bus that goes to Salem that has to leave the high school by 7:10. It has now 5 middle school buses that was divided out, and one of those is just middle school. The other 4 have high schoolers on it. You'll see on the chart, which I apologize too that you just got that today, because I've had to put all the data in there for you, and I think you can see where we have a lot of savings, time savings, and not so much, and I'll talk about that after. So Danville was the one that, you know, we had discussed more in detail when I had originally told you, we could eliminate a high school bus. So we did do that. So there's only 2 high school buses, and there are now 4 middle school buses covering the whole area of Danville, which has broken down the times better for those middle school buses. I think you can see that they have shorter runs. I even had a call from someone on Wyman's Landing today, which was from the north side of Danville, and she's like, yeah, 6:30 is great, because they were getting on at 6:20. She didn't care that they're the first pickup still. They're saving 10 minutes. So it's a good thing. She was like, that's great. I did get some calls from Atkinson on the Fieldstone end, because unfortunately, in order to keep routes short, those outlying areas are still first on now, and in some cases last off. It's the only way I can keep the routes short. And I feel bad because over the years, I've helped those people, catered to them maybe, Some understand and some don't. So just to let you know, in case you get any calls from parents. Plastow, I was hesitant in Plastow. I kept the 3 high school buses, and it still only has the 4 middle school buses with 2 dedicated just for middle school. The outlying areas in Plastow and the history of the riders in Plastow has been concerning, and consistently our middle school buses are full. I think we might still have some room for improvement in Plastow if I do eliminate a high school bus, but I didn't want to do that without really having some more data of who's actually riding. And the middle school runs weren't as long as some of the other towns were, so I didn't want to touch it too much, but I did take some stops off from the high school buses to put onto middle school. And there really wasn't a lot of kids, and most of the time they don't ride. So that shouldn't be too bad, but I'm gonna monitor it. In Sandown, they had 4 high school buses, so I did eliminate one. They have 3 now. They now have 6 middle school buses. One of those middle school buses is just middle school because it's in an area of an abundance of kids. And that's the same with any of the other middle school buses that don't have high school. There's an abundance of kids, and I try to balance that out. So at this point, we have to kind of go with it. If you look at the chart, you'll see in the blue where most of the improvements have been made. There's a couple that not so much, but they're only by minutes. So it's, again, things that the actual travel time when there's no stops in the morning from the last stop to the school, those might end up being shorter. It depends on the traffic coming in and what happens, so those are estimates. The same in the afternoon from the school to their first stop, the travel time is estimate, so those might be tightened up. In the lineup, the buses who seem to have the longer runs, obviously, are gonna be towards the front of the line, so we can get them out as quickly as possible and save some time there, okay? So there's, this is all a new system here this year, so it's gonna take some time to evaluate it and see what's going on with all of the buses and the students and the traffic, so also in the morning, the high school buses that only have high school kids are scheduled to arrive between 7 and 7:05 to get to the high school, drop, and get out first. The only one staying would be 117, the CTE bus, that is gonna sit there while the other buses come in. The middle school buses who have high school students are scheduled to arrive between 7:05 and 7:10, because those high school kids have to be dropped by 7:10. In the case that there might be some students that don't have CTE, we might be able to push those times past 7:10 by a few minutes, so that they're not in a big mix, and the high school kids can get off and they go right to the middle school and drop. So when those buses come in, drop at the high school, they're gonna go right to the middle school. At 7:15 is when they'll be dropped at the middle school. So they might be on that bus a few minutes, the middle school kids, because we need to have supervision at the middle school for them. So I'm not sure how that's gonna work. Again, it's something new, so we have to try it. The middle school only buses who don't have any high school kids, and there are 4 of them. There are 4 of them, so they're scheduled to come in between 7:15 and 7:20. So that when they come in, all the ruckus at the high school's done and they can go right to the middle school and drop. So that's the theory. In the afternoon, obviously, the the buses that have middle school and high school will be all parked at the middle school in line. So when high school is dismissed, if they're on one of those buses, they will need to walk down to where they're parked at the middle school. And then they will wait for the middle school kids to be dismissed, and the buses will leave. The other high school buses, as soon as they're dismissed and loaded, they're gonna be out of there, as they have been. Let me make sure I try to tell you everything. I'm more on the point to answer your questions. You know, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Advance your slide, that was just the high school, I had to break it up into 2 pieces.
Oh, well, they do have, okay.
They do, but I was just thinking for the people at home, if you want to advance your.
Oh.
You just did it? Oh, never mind.
Thank you.
Dr. Metzer did it for you. I'm so sorry. You did?
So the next slide is for the middle school. She had to divide it up for those who are watching. But I know you all have.
I have just a comment and then a question. This looks like a tremendous amount of work. Thank you. It's not quite what I was expecting. I thought we were looking at kind of a hybrid route, mostly for just those outlying areas. It looks like this went to more of an overall combined that I thought when we talked about, said wasn't going to work at all. But if you think it'll work, we'll give it a whirl and see how it goes. But my question is, 'cause I think on the surface it looks very combined, but I'm going to use Atkinson as an example, just that's my town and I'm familiar with those bus routes a little bit. I know the high school had 3 buses this past year. So we went down to 2 buses. So in theory, even though it looks like a very combined route, is it really more just those kids from that one bus offloaded onto the 4 other buses that were servicing the middle school?
No. No. So the one bus was eliminated. The 2 high school buses that are there are picking up students that are in a more populated area.
Right.
That I didn't want to put them all on a middle school
Sure.
bus. And you can see that.
So that's what I mean, so that the bus that was eliminated was basically more of those outlying areas. So now we're seeing that combined onto the middle school buses.
Right, so if you look at the middle school map for Atkinson, okay, you'll see the 5 buses.
Yep.
So if you'll see in the outlying area where bus 107 is,
Sure.
107 used to also include that Main Street piece. Okay, so it was, in order to make that route shorter, because if I added the outlying areas for the high school kids up there, they would still have to start 5 minutes earlier if I left it the way it was.
Right, no, I understand, but that's kind of my point that I'm making, is that we eliminated only one bus at the high school.
Yep.
And although it looks like these are very combined routes, it's really not as combined as it seems because we did that to better
have-
service those outlying areas.
We have a lot of high school kids who don't ride.
True, yes.
Right, so,
So do we
it's
know roughly-
Really servicing the bulk of the middle schooler,
Yeah.
Sandy, can we,
keeping their route as short as possible.
can we just talk repurpose instead of eliminate? Because people are gonna think the bus is gone.
Oh, sorry, yes, no, the bus isn't gone, no.
That I can't.
Repurposed, right?
We did not eliminate buses. We did. There's
So-
still 29, yes.
Roughly how many high school students do we anticipate being on these middle school buses? Do we know?
If you look on the chart,
Okay.
on the middle school portion, okay, on the right side, you will see the high school ridership number anticipated and the middle school ridership. Can you see that?
On the bottom right
You
quadrant?
have the right
Right
shot up?
here,
Yep, it is.
Jen,
Yeah.
right
Yep.
here.
Okay,
1920, yep, Sharon's got it.
okay.
Those 2 columns tell you how many high school kids, not including seniors, okay? Only freshman, sophomore, and junior in that number. And then the number for the middle school.
I'd be curious to see what that actual ridership is, because as we know, we don't really ever get 70 kids on a bus.
Right, and so that's why my report after school starts will have that for you,
Okay.
okay?
But the middle school numbers are pretty solid. It's the high school issue is where we think there could be some fluctuation with
Yep.
ridership, right?
Correct.
Yeah, but I had to make sure that we didn't overcrowd our middle school buses by adding those high school kids. The only one I'm concerned about is Plastow.
So I just have to say, my daughter might, unfortunately, she's already graduated, but she might have actually ridden the bus had we eliminated 20 minutes from the bus time in Danville. I mean, it's astounding
Same
how
thing
much.
with mine.
And I know, because I'm at the far end of Danville, that's
got
going to
the
be a
20 minutes
huge
and
difference
lost
for those
20
kids.
So
So
my-
Danville thanks you.
You're welcome. And that's because the 5 buses are now able to cover the whole area for shorter middle school routes and then add those high school kids.
And especially since there aren't that many kids in Danville.
Correct.
It made a huge difference.
Sue?
So, to summarize, instead of discussing specific routes, I'm not, I don't need to do with you. There were 29 buses, and there were 29 routes, is that correct?
Correct.
And now there are how many hybrid routes? 15?
There are actually 15, yes.
That's
That
way
hybrid is middle school and high school.
I got it. That's way higher than I understood we were going to do. I thought it was gonna be about 5. So this is getting closer to what parents didn't want, which is pretty much combining everybody.
Not all parents.
What the group of parents that came in, that I talked to and have called me, people do speak to me, were concerned about this. So, where I'm happy that the Danville route got 20 minutes, but the Plastow route got 20 minutes on the other end, so.
Where?
What?
Where? I don't see that the Plaster route picked up 20 minutes on the other end.
Look at that. Same, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute saved. Everybody
Everyone's
here
saved
saved.
except for 1 minute.
No, the 1 minute in red is over.
Right, but
Right,
that's what I'm
but-
saying, so we're only adding 1 minute onto any routes
yes, yes.
potentially.
But essentially,
20
they
minute.
would have been longer.
Right.
Because I did take out some stops on those high school routes.
But we're
It
not
would have been
adding,
longer this year than just that
right,
1 minute.
so no route is added 20 minutes. We've saved on all of them, we've saved time on all the routes.
Excellent, but 15 was not the number. I'm expressing it, I like that in the
Oh, I-
minutes, Mrs. Belcher.
Got
That
it.
Sue
Already got
Sherman from Plastow
I already got it.
is not happy with 15 hybrid routes. That was not what I agreed to. Thank you.
Well, I don't think it's what any of us originally
Thought it was.
thought it was going to be either,
No.
but I think this is what it turned out to be after Sandra worked
I'm
with the
happy with
company
this. This is for me, this is
and I'll,
great. The data crunching that you had to do to get this into play into here for all these positive, yeah, there's a couple there. There's always gonna be a couple
But-
outliers, but look at all those students that are gonna be saving all that time.
but, and can I just finish where I was going?
No, I'm
But-
sorry.
But again, I mean, I agree, I don't think any of us were thinking it was gonna be 15, but I'll be very curious to see the ridership numbers, as you said, as it goes on, because when you look at these numbers for the high school and how it's spread out and how they'll end up, I don't think you're looking at buses that are going to be 50-50. You're gonna have a few high schoolers on each bus, so it's not a predominantly heavy, half high school, half middle school, which I think was kind of the initial talk, which we did get away from, so I like to see that, and I know that there are parents that didn't want to see this, but I also know a lot of parents from Plastow and from other towns that were okay with this happening, so I think it was clearly a lot of work. You know, we'd hoped to see this earlier, and it kept taking more time because it required more work, so I'm appreciative of all the effort. I'll be curious to see how it goes. I know it's a work in progress. It's what we have. It's a week before school. I don't see we can do much more, so
This is
let's
out-
all
this
stay
is out there,
positive and hope
right?
it works.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is out there for
yeah,
parents.
It's out on the Facebook page.
But, I mean, again, we're saving time on almost every route, except for a couple. The highest one has a 2-minute increase. And all the schools are getting to the all the buses are getting to the elementary schools on time.
Yes.
No elementary schools impacted. Actually, some of these numbers look better than they did in previous years. So we're getting buses there to our elementary kids in a better situation. As you said, we could save more time because some of these high schoolers won't be on there. So it will save more time. So, thank you, Sandra.
You're welcome, thank
Sarah?
you.
So, again, thank you
for all of the work that you've done. Totally appreciate it. Again, I'm a little surprised, but it is what it is, and I'm hopeful for a positive report, later once the school year starts. I'm curious how the logistics at the high school and middle school works. Will you be working with the principals? Will that be like how? Because it sounds like it's going to be a little complicated, especially in the afternoon, or when the high school buses unload and they leave. If middle schoolers are loading, or the safety concern with the hybrid model or with the combined buses was always one of my primary concerns. So have those logistics been worked out, or who works to figure that out on the first day of school?
I'm gonna work with the administrators at the high school, middle school, so they understand what's happening.
Right.
Obviously, in the morning, when the buses pull up, the high school kids will get off as they normally do,
Yeah.
just the high school at the high school.
Okay.
The buses that have middle schoolers on them, those middle schoolers will stay on the bus.
Okay.
And the buses will pull up to the middle school.
So pull up, all right.
And drop them off. And there's a long enough area behind the middle school that they can pull into a line and wait for all of the other high school buses to leave.
Okay.
And then they'll be able to drop the middle schoolers.
Okay.
Without any traffic going by while
Without
they're
traffic,
dropping.
yeah, because that's,
Yep.
it's confusing back there, especially with students
Yeah.
parking, and so if there's a new pattern, there's, human behavior. You're used to, especially for an upperclassman, they're used to knowing the pattern of the buses, and if it's changing, I'm just concerned about the safety, so.
I know that our drivers don't want to move buses when students are out walking.
Right.
So the purpose is to get the middle school buses in there, make sure all the high school ones are out before they drop off the middle schoolers. And at the middle school, they usually do them, I think, three or four buses at a time. Then those move on, and the others move up, so the kids are always being dropped at the main cafeteria or the gym door there.
Okay.
In the afternoon, buses are all in line for any schools come out of, kids come out of the school. So the high school will be released first, and give those kids enough time to get down to the middle school buses, if that's where they need to go. They have that 5 minutes. Then the high school buses will be leaving and out of the way, and that's when the middle school kids will be dismissed, as we do now. That's
Okay.
what we have been doing. Then they'll be dismissed. So there'll be no buses or traffic moving when kids are coming out of the school.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of better understand that again, because safety and change in patterns and confusion, and, just want to make sure that that was going to be handled.
We have great drivers who
Yes.
are on the same page about safety.
Good.
And
I
they
can-
will not move their buses with kids walking.
I can simplify the answer just a tad. Well, first, this wasn't meant to surprise anybody. I mean, the charge was simple.
Yep.
You said save riders time. So I didn't want Sandy's hands tied. I said, she worked, you all know, you've recognized, tirelessly to come back with the best plan to save time, which this is the best plan to save time. And so I think you even mentioned the other day to me during SLT was like, if we had an additional bus, we might even be able to do some more, because that was that talk about the Plasto thing, but that.
I'm
we're not-
concerned about Plasto.
Yeah.
I think Plasto's gonna need another bus, and it's not just from the middle school, high school level. Pollard is, our buses are full, and I don't have a lot of leeway there, because one bus has to take YMCA kids, which ends up being about 40 to 50 kids.
Yeah, it's a
On
lot of
that
kids.
one bus to YMCA. And all the other buses are all up in the 60 counts. And I have no leeway.
So we'll cross that bridge
Yep.
soon. The second part of that was how to, we're gonna do what we need to do to make this work. So what does that mean? So if there are directives that need to be issued, Kathy's gonna tell me what directives to issue, and I'm gonna issue them. No, I'm just. No, but that communication will come through our office, and I think, working with the schools, we're going to do whatever we need to do to make this work. You have 100% commitment from all staff, and I too have to say from everybody's, we thank Sandy, it's incredible. What a puzzle to put this together, and I know, I see you in there all day, every day, late at night, early in the morning, she's been working on this tirelessly, and I'm so glad, and we've heard from a few parents too, you hear both sides, but whatever, but that's out there, we're trying to communicate as much, so we don't want anybody confused about how to get to and from school. I'm hoping that parents have that information, we got it out there, early, you know, the messaging. If they have any questions, please call, email. Sandy's replying, you know, to multiple parents in both districts on a regular basis, so that people can make heads or tails of what the changes may be. We encourage people to get out there a few minutes early than what your stop is. We say, 4 or 5 minutes earlier than the time.
Yep, at least 5, just in case, and expect buses to run late the first week or two.
Yeah.
And then they'll pick up time, so bus might be picking up late the first week, doesn't mean don't be out there early. Be out there early, because the next week they're gonna pick up time.
And so, because I just offered, we're gonna be in a little early next week, right, so that if the phone's ringing, right, so we'll manage your time differently, but, you know, please, parents, if you're confused or need questions answered, please ask, and, you know, Sandy or myself, Kathy, email, call, and we'll get right back to you, okay?
And I just want to apologize to parents, I'm not ignoring them. I had to get a lot of stuff ready and be consistent and get these routes done. So tomorrow's my day to call back a lot of the parents and emails. So I just want them to know I've not forgotten them, and I always return every call.
And you want to talk a little bit something about the new app, so
Oh,
that,
yes, thank you, because just today, I got 10 emails on the First View app. So the information is out there that we're gonna start that, and I think it's a great thing. What they do is shut it down at the end of the year, and they won't start it up again until the first day. So if you've downloaded the app, it's great, it's on your phone. Yes, you might not be able to get your student's ID number in there yet because it has not been downloaded from the program into their First View app yet, and that should be done by Monday, okay? So all of those parents saying it's not working, it must be me, no, it's not. The First View app is not up and running and probably might be Monday or definitely on Tuesday.
I really wish you would have put that on that little flyer.
I didn't know until
That blew up.
Until we all emailed you.
It blew up, yeah.
So just pass
So I
that
feel bad
along,
for you, because it
please.
did blow up,
So you don't
yeah.
have to email me back, Sandy.
I already did.
The next one is gonna be Lee. Lee's had his
Right.
hand up for a while.
And with the First View app, one thing to remember too, if a different bus is being
Want the
used
gavel?
because of offloaded, right, you won't necessarily see your bus on the way to your stop.
That's
Right.
only if they're offloading.
Yeah, okay.
But if there is a spare bus, the manager, Chandra, is in charge. She has the dashboard, and when they switch out buses, they're supposed to put that in their system so that it will still follow your bus, the bus that your child is on. However, there will be some glitches, because when everyone gets on, all of a sudden, you know, there's gonna be something doesn't come out right. Because my concern was, a lot of times bus drivers go past stops that they don't have to stop at. And what happens is, with the GPS, it will stop tracking the actual stop. It will still track the bus. So the parent can still get on the app and see where the bus is, okay? And it might give you an estimate to your stop, but it might not actually tell you when it got to that stop. If that happens, it's because the bus tracking of where that bus is going, something veered off the route, and that does happen. But you should always be able to see where the bus is. You'll see, when you see it on the map, it's pretty cool.
Kristen
I just have a
promised me
quick
she has a
comment
quick
about the
one.
app, because we're talking about this, and the confusion right now is people aren't sure where to find their student ID number either, so you might want to put something out there
Yeah.
to remind people which student ID number, where to find it, and what to use for the app, because people, and I know they were emailing you, and I saw all the comments, so just some clarification, this is the number to use, so that they don't bug you trying to ask you that question,
The
Sandy.
school should be able to provide the
Right.
that.
And everyone has it, but
on the
some
report
parents
cards.
just don't
Yeah,
get
some
it.
people are more familiar with what their number is than others. and-
Right, they don't realize what it is, so just putting
No, good
something out
point.
there to remind people your student ID number can be found here, so that they're not gonna call the schools or call you, would probably alleviate a lot of those emails over the next few days.
And I'm sure the schools would have been able to probably address that more in their letters, but unfortunately, all the information
Yeah.
is just coming at the last
So, or
minute.
maybe just
I
one
just
more
feel
quick
bad, because
email.
you're gonna get 101,000 calls
Maybe-
over.
Maybe
just-
another email
That's okay.
to go out to everyone to let them know, or one of your robocalls.
Welcome back. That might be one of the key things to put, yeah.
I have to tell you, parents are very, very, Very forgiving. I have not had a parent come call and yell at me except for one.
School hasn't started
It was
yet.
an Atkinson one. Because she didn't like,
I think the call would be more useful Monday than probably tomorrow, right?
Lee's got the gavel now.
I just had
can get it posted
just one
online.
comment to make.
Sure.
You know, everyone knows where I've stood. It's been no secret where I've felt on the bus routes, but as everyone said, you did a tremendous amount of work. I went through, because I'm just kind of a geek like that. You saved over 6 hours of bus time.
Wow.
6 hours of bus time
You've been
total.
busy over there.
Yeah, it's,
2 hours
I
of save
used
down
I use my
alone,
toes
2
too.
plus.
But
huge.
six hours of total bus time, that's amazing.
Yeah.
The next step is get the bus discount.
Fuel, and the fuel.
Just
yeah.
back to that comment about the Pollard bus, I just want to make sure I understood you right. So, if we're looking at the need to possibly add a bus to Pollard, it is not related to this change?
No.
Because the bottleneck is at the elementary school, so
Correct.
obviously it sounds like Pollard's enrollment has increased?
Significantly.
Okay, just wanted to be clear that that's not related to this. Okay, thank you.
thank you all.
Sue?
Oh,
Mr. O'Neill, I did want to say, Sandy, you know how much I appreciate all the work you've done for all the years. I just think this was not something you needed to do. I've made that clear where I stood on the buses. I appreciate unbelievable amount of time doing this.
No, I
Thank
agree.
you,
Great
Sandy.
amount of effort, and thank you very
I
much,
also-
Sandy.
I respect how you feel as well. Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Good job, Sandy.
See you in a little bit, next
Thank
month
you.
maybe.
John, could you put E, F, and G off to another meeting and go into?
I was,
Just have to,
I was
We
gonna,
get some
I was
school
gonna
board supplement
request
for that.
policies be put off. I did get, just a quick, I got an email, sections
Later
A
on.
through C, I think will be due to us next week on policies.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I talked, New Hampshire School Board Association, we should have our policy review, half of it by, I think, next week or September 5th, and then the other half the week after that. So,
Wow, that's great.
so if we want to, that's why I was going to
I
suggest
was
putting that
actually
off as
gonna
well.
agree with that, the transportation, the policies could be pushed on off to the next agenda. We do have to get to the year-end budgets and stuff, because we have to do some financial aspects that are governed by RSAs, so why won't we do
Tonight?
that tonight?
Tonight, we have
They
to
do
do
tonight?
end of year stuff tonight.
They're due September
We'll do
1st.
September 1st.
Okay.
We're not, people are gonna have to come in and sign them before September 1st.
Which one are you doing first, the
general
general
The-
assurances or the year-end?
Year-end.
You know what this is?
Okay. Did you want to walk us through this, Dr. Metzler?
I can. I'll do the best I can. This is business office, but exactly, we got this report at your request, basically looking for what the unassigned fund balance would be. I'm going right down to the bottom line, so it looks, here in the 3.4 and some change range. So I guess the report is pretty self-explanatory. Did they just get this today?
That came in at, that's why I was late getting down here. Got it very
So-
late today.
You haven't had a chance to look at it. I haven't had a chance to look at it. Any one that you have.
I do know
other
that
than-
he included for the report itself, he included the encumbrances, which was requested by the board. If you look at the larger one, he's got that 2019 encumbrances, he shows you. And I think, Sean, you had made that request so that you can see where the money actually came from, so you can have a true sense of what was spent out of the last year's budget and what part of it was moved forward. I know that he populated that column.
What was important, from my perspective anyway, was to get you the unassigned fund balance number so that if you were looking to make any kind of move, you'd have the number to make the move on. So it appears did pretty well, favorable number.
So just so I understand this, $3,461,783 is what we're looking at for a surplus for the year that just closed?
Yeah, that's the
It's an
unassigned fund
unaudited,
balance.
so it's still
Not
an
audited
estimate.
yet, but that's an estimate, but usually the estimates are conservative. Typically,
Okay.
I say that meaning, I don't know, it could be more or less, but I don't think it's $300,000 or $400,000 in any direction. I'd say it's probably,
Yeah, because what we did is we started off with the year moving into this year, or the year that just closed, with 2.55 million of the, already in the unassigned fund balance.
No, we did not.
Previous unassigned fund balance?
No, that was sent back to the voters except for $200,000.
Yeah, see how you keep that's the big number, then you decide how much you want to keep, and the rest goes back to the voters to offset the tax rates.
Last year's surplus was 2.5 million. This year's surplus on a default budget was 3.4 million. Plus, we moved 700,000 approximately in for roofing, did we not? So if we had not done that, we would have been looking at a surplus of over $4 million on a default budget.
And we retained 200, so we sent everything back, of that 2.5 last year, right, Kim?
Correct.
Kept 200,000. So we've got to decide what we're gonna do with this surplus.
No, it's,
Yes,
By September 1st?
correct.
all right, well, I get it.
So what my recommendation would be with this is that the 2.55 million, which should be what we should earmark as our unreserved fund balance.
No, of the 3.4, what are we?
3.461
Last year.
It's the bottom line
is
number.
the bottom line
number.
surplus.
But then what are we gonna leave in
We
there
typically
after?
retain about
$200,000 is
$200,000.
what we talked about. One year we did 600, when we did 500, we've done 400. We've done about 200, 250 the last few years,
And that's the
right?
capital reserve, correct?
No.
That's just retaining it to start off the next,
No,
yes, I
that's
get it.
Starting it to retain the
Okay.
next year, but you've
Yep.
also got to remember that there's money that's still,
Coming in.
it doesn't mean that we start with just 200,000.
No,
because there's money
I
always in there,
realize
so-
that, but I'm just trying to figure out where that is.
Which
And the
means,
700 is already out of this, am I correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Hey, you're welcome, anytime I can make it.
the 700's already been removed.
And there's roughly 711,000 that was unexpended in the
I don't want to
budget.
give you the wrong answer to this, so.
Well, that's why I'm
I know,
I'm
that's
just
why you're
making
asking
sure,
that.
because we spent that 700, that's why I'm asking.
And this is different, this is reported differently than we have in the past. Right? It's
Favorable.
different, this report.
what looks different?
It's different the way it's reported. I mean, I think the format
wait,
is different
yeah,
than
maybe.
perhaps we've seen in the past. Unassigned fund balances. I'm not, it might be more. I mean,
It should be in the encumbrances, wouldn't it be?
It's hard for me to see on the budget where that
Right.
is, because I don't have the,
well, the business administrator will be at the next meeting. He can walk you through all these numbers.
But
that
we
got
need to
laid
do
today.
something,
But you have enough money to hold, you have enough money to make a move for the September 1st of what you want to retain. It's significantly insignificant, that's a way to say this. I mean, if you're talking a couple $100,000 out of 3.4 million, you're gonna hold on to a couple $100,000 out of 3.4 million, right? And then if you have specific questions about what generated the 3.4, how we got there, as it's audited, those sorts of things, I mean, those would be more appropriate for the business administrator.
So, can I just ask, the 200,000 that has the asterisk next to it, that says retained fund balance will lapse if not acted upon, what do we have to do with that?
That means that if you want to reserve any money out of your surplus now, you have to take that total, add it to the 200,000, and then that's your motion, is 200,000 plus what you want to take out of this one. It doesn't stay, you have to act, that's what he was saying, you have to act on it every year to dedicate that money.
Yeah, we did it last year, too. Then we did it year two.
So you have the sample motion, right?
So then the motion would be is, I mean, if we want to keep the same status quo, would be is to have the retaining fund balance be equal to $200,000 for the next.
200 plus whatever.
Plus
else you
whatever
wanna
is
add.
already there.
From the current one, and then the additional one. Your total needs to be because the $200,000 goes away. You have to re-motion it again from the one that's already sitting in the account now.
Yeah.
All right, so if that lapse or goes away, then the motion would be just how much do you want to retain then?
No, yep.
No,
What
we
would
ran
you
into
add?
this
Couple
before,
years ago.
yes.
Let's be careful about the goes away, because it doesn't just go away.
right.
There's no money missing, that money, it goes into the budget.
Yeah.
I'd have to
So you're
look at the
putting 200
motion from like a year ago.
We messed
better
that,
now.
remember we made a mistake, I know it was last year, the year before, we made a mistake on
Right.
how we motioned it, so we had to come back and fix it. You have to include the 200 and then whatever
Plus
else you
whatever
want to
we-
add. So the
yes.
motion would be something like, I make a motion to retain in the current balance of 200 with an addition of 300,000 for a total of 500,000 to
Yes.
be retained
Mm-hmm.
from the unassigned fund balance of 3.4561, whatever it
Is
is.
that a motion?
But no, but I would agree
I'll
with
second
it.
it.
I'm gonna look it up from
No,
last
no,
year.
no, 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 we don't want
Go
to,
to your minutes last year. I was
But
just
what
trying
that's
to
gonna
that
do
myself.
is that
That's
it's
what I'm
gonna,
doing,
it's
yeah.
gonna increase, instead of us retaining 200,000 in this, this account, you're adding 300,000 to it to make it 500,000, so now you're gonna have $500,000 there.
If you only want 200,000 in, then you just put in 200,000.
we just retained 200,000, why, all right. I know, Sue, you were using that as an example. Are you looking to have us retain 500, or are you okay with 200?
I'd like to retain 500, there's no reason why we can't.
Yeah.
So the rest of you are saying no to that?
No, I'm in favor of that.
I'm not gonna support that, but, I mean,
Well, why wouldn't you support it? I mean,
Got plenty of money to, it still is a very sizable amount to send back to the communities to,
Yes.
to affect your community's tax rate by 40 cents, maybe? 22 cents, or,
Remind me again what this fund is used for?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. What would that extra,
when you spend all your budget, and you have
Right.
no money left.
Right.
You go to court and say, can we spend this money, we have an emergency.
I think you
Is
got
that would be out of
essentially
the
it, Kim?
unassigned fund balance, but this one, you have even more flexibility to it.
That's the capital
no, that's what
reserve.
he's, that's,
No, it's not
that's what it would
capital
become.
reserve.
No, you still have to get approval from DRA because
Right.
it can only be used for an emergency purpose. You need both
That's why I said
DRA
you go to
and
court.
DOE approval, I believe.
That's the
To
retained
use
money
this-
from the surplus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
okay, so,
Retained fund balance.
From this fund balance.
And it can't be more than 2%, right? Isn't that the number of the total
Yes,
budget?
it's
That's a cap, yeah. There's a,
2% of the,
The total budget.
total budget, so that'd be like 1.4 million. Sheila?
do we know what's in there now?
200,000.
200,000.
That's it,
That's it.
thank you. I'm just making, that
A
there
few
was
years, a few years ago, you retained a lot, and then
Yeah.
you,
Right.
and then you changed it and gave some back
Yeah.
before the years, right? We did
Yeah.
something,
But this is what the previous unassigned fund balance is 2.550 mil. And then we also have 200,000 of the retained fund balance.
That's what we retained.
that was
that's
last
just
year's.
information. Don't add and subtract those. That's just,
No,
that's,
you have to
they
add
are
them.
two separate line items in our accounting that they have on there. If you want to look at it from an accounting perspective, we have 2.750 mil of funds between those two accounts.
No, the last year's unassigned fund balance went back to the voters.
Correct.
That
Right.
2.5 million
That's
went back
gone.
so
to
he's
the
saying,
voters.
last year when they were sitting here, instead of having 3.4, last year they had 2.5.
Yeah,
2.7.
That's just information.
Well, 2.7, because you took 2 out of it.
Okay.
2.7.
So it's just an informational purpose. Don't add and, I mean, I think you're looking at it for the wrong direction, Sean.
I see what Sean's doing, though, because that does add up to that amount. When you add those three numbers up, that does add up to that.
You know, you're right, it does.
Ooh.
Well, then,
you know,
Math does come into play sometimes.
Well, you need an explanation from the business administrator that goes far beyond, you do have enough money to retain money for the
Right.
September 1st
Yes,
deadline.
yes.
That you can do
I
tonight.
agree with you.
The rest of your
Brian was
questions
trying
and
to figure out what
explanations
the
about what all
numbers
this means, you're really gonna need, you probably have some really
The
in-depth
person that
questions.
created the document needs to be here to explain it.
it's on vacation.
It's, I mean,
I think you should
That means
retain more
nothing
because you have
without
so
that.
much money to deal with.
You do.
You got 3.5 million,
yep.
you should be retaining 400,000 or 500,000
I agree
and turn the
with
rest
that.
back in. It doesn't go anywhere, like you said. It doesn't.
So I have the motions from last year and the year prior. So last year was not clean. There was a motion to place 175K of unassigned fund balance into the retention fund. And then there was an amendment to the motion by placing 200K of unassigned fund balance into the retention fund. That was it.
And we made a mistake doing it that.
Yeah.
Correct.
The year prior to that, there was a motion to contribute 250K to the fund balance retention fund. That failed. And then there was a motion to contribute 175K to the fund balance retention fund. That passed. And that was it.
But
So,
it-
there we go, clear as mud.
Yeah, really clear. So it depends on how much we had each year, so we got a little bit more this year, that's why I'm saying 3.
No,
It doesn't
You know.
address the adding it to.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It doesn't show that we had two separate motions, which was just a bottom line of,
Didn't, look in the next set of minutes after, look
Following
look
that
at
meeting?
last year and see if we had to re-motion it, or
What
we had to
meeting,
fix it.
what meeting minutes are you in, Lee?
I am on standby.
My memory
August
serves me-
23rd, 18, and August 24th, 17.
If my memory serves me well, I think the year in question was a year when you changed the number and gave some back, and then that's what changed. You had already retained it and tried to give it back, and the motions got kind of confused and convoluted. I think the last 2 years have been pretty clean. You picked a number and retained it.
I think that's it, yeah. That's what these minutes are showing anyways.
Okay, so it wasn't any do-overs and fixes in the next year.
No, I looked at the next week's minutes or the next meeting's minutes.
So I'll redo my motion and say we would retain 300,000 of the 33,461,783.
No,
Retain,
no.
No.
'Cause that means it's a total of 300.
Because the other lapses,
The other
that's
two
the little
disappears.
asterisk.
oh, so, yeah, right, 3 plus the 2, yeah.
I'll second that. I want a $500,000.
It's clear as mud, too.
I want a 500,000 there too, that's not enough.
All right, so where are we leaving off here?
I'm gonna go to
I think the spirit of what they're, I think the spirit, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, you're
200 plus
asking to
3.
retain 500,000.
Yes.
In total.
Yeah.
Correct.
So the previous retained fund balance is 200,000,
Yep.
which we do need to act upon or else it will lapse. So we are looking to, in previous years, we did not have a $3.4 million. So in previous years, we just kept it the same. So what we're looking to do is to retain that 200,000
With an
plus
additional-
add an additional 300,000 for a total of
5.
500,000.
Right.
I think the
That's
goes away
what I-
piece is this 200 is going back, and now you're giving 200 and then taking 500, so you're really only
Yes.
asking for 300.
Yes.
Is what you're
I
doing.
think that's why the wording of what you said was, yeah, correct. Right? Following you.
I mean, I have a little more information. So it originally came out that in 2013, the voters authorized indefinitely until rescinded the retention of year-end unassigned general fund balances in the amount not to exceed in any fiscal year 2.5% of the current fiscal year's net assessment for the purpose of having funds on hand to use as a revenue source for emergency expenditures and over expenditures under RSA 3211, or to be used as a revenue source to reduce the tax rate, all in accordance with RSA 198. So that was the basis of it in the first place.
Right.
So that's only a couple $100,000.
That's why.
2.5% of 3.
2.5% of the whole, no, it's where Sean was, I think it's in the 1 point something million, but you're not.
Yeah.
anywhere near that.
1.7.
1.6, 1.7, so.
That ain't happened.
Oh, so
But I
500
think the motion
seems
is to retain
reasonable.
500,000. You'd reduce the unassigned fund balance. I am concerned with how this was generated. I said it does look different to me, and then to Jen's point and Sean's point, you add the numbers up.
It adds, right.
I don't wanna miscalculate and say we have $3.5 million in surplus. when we
versus-
No,
don't.
it does make sense, though, because that $200,000, if we don't act upon it, it is going back in. So really, the unassigned fund balance is 2.5 million. Then you're adding the $200,000 that's going to go back in unless we act upon it. And then you also have that favorable revenue versus expenditures for $711,000.
Well, that's all I'm reading, and I just wanna make
Yeah.
sure I'm 100% accurate. I do know you have enough money to retain, to make the motion to be all set for September 1st.
So what you're doing is you're actually taking this 711K of the, as Jeff has categorized it as favorable revenue versus expenditures, basically what we didn't spend in the budget. And in this case, with this motion, you're gonna be taking 300,000 of that and adding it to the retained fund balance, so that what's gonna really go back to the voters is 411K
Plus the 2.5
to
million.
offset their taxes.
You're really, yeah, you're gonna.
But the
it's gonna be-
2.5 is gonna be what you're gonna retain.
No.
Nope.
2.5 million will go back to the voters.
I don't know. We,
It's not the way it works.
I think, Sean, I think you were right. You're right.
You're wrong.
Now,
That's not how.
listen, favorable revenue versus expenditure here. So our revenue was 69.3 million. Our budget was 71.8. So we were only underspent by $711,000 is what you're saying. And this other 2.5 is carry forward from what we have in our funds
What funds?
that are.
The unassigned fund balance.
The unassigned fund balance, yeah.
Unassigned fund balance
Yeah.
is, you can think of it as analogous, as that basically you have seed money in our general fund of 2.5 million, 2.550 million that's retained.
Yes.
And is
Every year.
adjusted each year depending upon how much of the revenue versus expenditures that,
Yeah.
we didn't spend. How much of that are you going to retain to increase the fund balance? Or use it to offset taxes? I mean, this board has a liberty. We could say that
what
all
you're
this
saying.
funds right here, we could start out and say, move the fund balance, the unassigned fund balance for the next fiscal year to 3.461783 million. And that would be $0 would go back to the voters.
Right.
So any kind of permutation that we decide in there is you're taking it from one bin and moving it to the other one.
And so, really, I was totally incorrect in what I was saying is the surplus.
I was just gonna ask you,
The
so are
surplus is
you
$711,000. The surplus is under $1 million. No, you disagree, Sue?
I don't agree.
All right.
Why would he put it send it to us unassigned fund balance if that wasn't the number? I know the number last year was 2.5. I know it was. As we discussed, how come it was that high?
Well, it's pretty clear.
We don't know.
You don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, I got some bad news for you.
Because from
I
the
wouldn't
town
recommend taking any
perspective,
votes.
this
You
is
don't know
how
what's
we
going
would
on
read
here.
this. I understand why you're reading it, and I think that's, we don't know.
When's Jeff back?
All right, I'm gonna probably eat a lot of crow for saying this, but why don't we just, we're gonna take a hit on DRA and not being done by 9/1, and we'll reconvene this. Yeah.
No,
Quote me on that.
Our forms will be late.
Yes, they will.
I don't think that's
Write
on
that
us.
down in a minute.
Yep, no, I know, well, at least it's being
sorry.
addressed.
Well, let's do it.
You
Is he gonna
can
be here by
vote.
the 5th?
You can vote and.
I'm gonna give you the surplus number in about 30 seconds.
You can do that.
You texted him?
I'll get you the surplus number. Because this does not
Clear
look
as
how I've
mud,
seen it
isn't
in the
it?
past. Normally it's surplus.
It's not right. It doesn't
As
say it that
surplus.
way. Yeah.
Like,
Right,
And
so
I-
I'm gonna go to what were in our agenda packets last year, and we can do that. That's online as well.
Please.
The board documents.
I was saving all the hard stuff for the beginning of our meetings.
but it is worth at
time, we have
least,
stuff.
a minimum, saying you're gonna retain the same number you retained last year, right?
I would definitely say I support that. and
I'd
I'm
support that, but I'm not gonna support
to increase it to, I
500,000.
mean, that would
It's
be,
real simple then. Let's just go for the 200. We have that.
The likelihood of us using it, knock on wood, it's an emergency thing, so
Yeah, I
it's nice to
understand. So
have.
let's just
but
go
we-
with the 200
Actually,
then.
and 200,000 is nothing.
Let's go with the 200.
Especially when we have an
When we
emergency,
have
it's not much money.
$2 million in surplus, so we're not probably gonna run out of money.
That means,
you can't
well,
use it. It's gonna go to low.
there's,
Last year.
depending upon the issue that you would have, if something came in at $550,000, we have $200,000 of it here, then yes, we could then petition the Superior Court and DRA and DOE and say, we need to address this particular issue. And for 500,000 and lay it out. I mean, that's what the
30
law.
seconds is up.
You gotta spend your entire budget before you do that.
Although he does still have it here.
Right.
Yeah,
But they're all in the negatives.
hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's right.
Retain 200,000.
Second.
Oh, did someone make a motion?
I thought we had a motion.
Well,
was a
we didn't have
motion and a second
Oh, there was
for
motion to
500.
We had a
retain
second.
10K of
seconded
the.
it.
Yes, Brian did it.
Yeah, I second, but that's,
Now
but
we're
we
gonna
didn't,
take
just
it away?
we're gonna take it away
Rescind it.
because we don't know these numbers. So I say do what we did last year.
But
It's not in the packet.
In other words, we'll have 200 versus 500 because we don't know what's going on here.
Just give me,
We don't have a
That's-
real
We'll have at least
answer.
200.
So can you rescind your motion and your second? We'll start with that.
Just withdraw them.
yeah,
Okay.
reluctantly, because I think that's too bad.
I just asked the question, is the surplus 3.4 million? And the question is yes, with no fund balance retention included.
Yeah, with no fund balance
Yeah, so we're gonna take the 200,000.
and add some
So
to
you
it.
can do whatever, that's the number you're working off of, so just so you
Wow.
know.
Say that again?
the surplus is 3.
Oh, it is the big number.
It's with no fund balance retention included, it's 3.4 million. So
Right.
it is that number. That number is the surplus. That was my question.
So do
Is
you wanna
$3.4 million a
Withdraw your withdraw?
I'm not withdrawing my withdrawal.
Yeah, I'll withdraw
yes,
my withdrawal.
I'm-
So
Yes,
I'll
you
go back
are.
to the game, I'll go back to the,
So let's, if I can get that down again, the motion to retain 300,000 of the fund,
Surplus
well, they don't call it surplus.
to be added to the
Unassigned fund balance.
unassigned
Terry, you know,
fund
you know I can't
balance.
see this. I'm trying. No.
I think you have to retain the 200 plus 300.
And,
Right.
and to retain the 200,000
Right.
that's currently there.
I can read that font from here.
Based on the understanding that we have a $3.4 million
Based on the
surplus
understanding.
There you
from
go.
our
that we
business
have-
administrator.
Jen, I can see it from
From our
here.
business
1.4 million.
managers, that we have 3.4.
But the rest of the editorial, we
Six,
were
one,
very good on
7, 8,
spending. We
3.
didn't
So
spend, you know, so.
that really needs to be part of your motion.
I
Yeah,
agree.
put that in the motion, please, Mrs.
341, yeah, I'm doing it right now, 780.
Sue Sherman was right.
Motion to retain 300K
Because of budget committee
of
stuff.
unassigned fund balance and retain
I was with you from the beginning.
200K of the previously assigned fund balance, right?
That's correct.
For a total of
Okay,
500,000.
previously assigned, fund
Previous
balance
retained fund balance according to our report in front of
for
us.
a total retention of 500K. Seconded by Mr. Boyle.
Can you read that back, Kathy, please?
Ken. Susan Sherman, motion based on the understanding that the unassigned fund balance is $3,461,783. She motions to retain 300 of the unassigned fund balance and retain 200,000 of the previous retained fund balance for a total of $500,000, for a total retention of $500,000. Seconded by Mr. Boyle. Is that it?
That's it.
Did you want to add,
Discussion?
did you want it in there that that reliance on that 3.4 number is coming from?
Yeah, can you add to the motion,
As-
based on the reliance that the number of 3.4
Oh,
million?
that's too complicated. Can I
came
just fix it
from
and just say,
our
as
business
represented
manager.
by the business administrator?
that okay,
as rep-
Karen?
That's fine, yep.
Okay, Kim?
Okay.
I'm going to vote against that motion. We are looking at close to $4 million that we had left over in this current budget. To have to hold back $500,000 as we move forward into a budget year
That's more money.
that has more money doesn't make any sense to me when we have held $4 million of the taxpayers' money.
If $500,000 was gonna make that big a deal to our taxpayers, and affect Danville's tax rate by X number of cents, and Plastow's, et cetera, by that much, I might be in favor of it. I just don't think it's that big a deal to retain 500. I think that's a more, based on how much we've got left, it seems like a reasonable, you know,
Well, it's a increase of 150% in that fund. Period, just looking at the sheer numbers. We went from 200,000 to 500,000.
Yeah, it's 125,000 a town versus 50.
And I just sat in a public hearing where I got soundly chastised for spending $10,000 of taxpayers' money on something that they didn't think that should have been spent.
It's actually less
True.
than that.
It was actually much less than that.
you
So,
can get chastised.
oh,
I didn't hear you get chastised.
Oh,
You
I-
heard you got questioned when we said we weren't gonna spend any
no,
money,
no.
but we did spend money.
No, we did, you didn't, anyway.
You
I
didn't
felt
get
it was being
chastised.
chastised, I certainly did, Sue. So, I am not in favor of holding any taxpayer money back beyond what I feel is needed. And if you've got $4 million of a budget that wasn't spent last year, I don't see any reason to save $500,000 on a budget that's moving forward with more money.
I am gonna be voting in favor of it, and the reason why is, I think the number was 2.5%, which was 1.7 million. And I think going at 500,000 is fiscally responsible if we don't know what's gonna happen with the budget season and going forward, and we could run out of money. I mean, we've been, the last 2 years, we haven't, but we could. And where you sit in these meetings and we hear about all this stuff, roofs, this, that, the other thing, I mean, if we for some reason have a tight budget schedule and all of a sudden we have a roof collapse, 200,000 is not gonna fix it. Where 500 might do the job and might help us, so I just don't think 200 is a safe number to have in there for, this is supposed to be for that emergency if we have a problem. 200's not gonna fix an emergency, in my mind, so I think having 500, which is still less than the 2.5% that's recommended or suggested or limited by DRA, is a smart thing, so that's why I'm in favor of it.
Don't forget, we have a capital reserve fund.
Yeah,
But you have to wait for the voters to allow you to use
Voters
it.
have to act on that.
You can call for a
And so
meeting
if
on
we
that.
don't use that $500,000 the following year,
You'll be sitting here next year and that
But I'm
particular
saying,
line
but
will
the-
be
but-
$500K.
Then it goes back.
right, but the,
It
but
goes back
then,
to voters.
right, it goes, you could, the next year, you could say,
could
I'm only
send it
gonna
back.
retain 200 and 300 will go back to the voters.
Or we'll, you know, we'll cut it in
can.
half and say,
Just
let's
one.
keep 250 and send it, yeah.
I just wanted to be clear
Or
about
we
what, where
retain
that was
nothing of a
going.
surplus next year and just leave and just maintain the 500.
You have that option every year, yeah.
I just think 500 seems like
No,
a
I just wanted to be
reasonable number
clear that
for a
that's
district this size.
what will happen with that 500 if we go that route.
Call it.
Call the question.
Did you have your hand up?
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed?
Okay, can we do that again? All those in favor again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Sheila, Sean, and Ken.
Okay, and then 3. Thank you. Oh, Dr.
Motion
Vera
passes.
also.
No. I was against. I thought you called for
3
against again.
against.
3 against.
Kim.
Me, Sean, and Sheila against.
Okay,
Everybody else for.
got it, thank you.
Okay, if we could put this topic back on the agenda for the next one with the business administrator here, so we can go walk through these numbers now that,
The end of year,
Yeah,
yeah.
that'd be awesome.
Thank you.
And if something were to change, I think, we'll get the form in on time, but if something were to change, I think he can adjust that form, right?
I believe you can.
Yeah. Can we do general insurances?
Yes.
This may look familiar, it may not. This was something we brought to you, something similar we brought to you, and you went through a general assurances. This is the one that requires the school board chair. This was a confusing kind of thing that went through the state. We got the other form in, this is a different form, and so we needed the board, the board needs to go through and take a look at this with the chair, and when the chair's comfortable, the chair would sign this and we would file it. We went back through the emails, I forwarded this to the 2 chairs in the 2 districts, like literally within minutes of getting it. But they sent out 2 of these, so it was confusing, general assurances. So it was
Right,
2
one was the
separate.
program assurances,
One's for program assurances, and this is
right, general
general assurances.
assurances.
So you went through the program assurances, which you didn't have to. This was really the one you should have gone through.
Well, I
we-
think the other one did require it, I think we had to put the date in when the board
We brought them,
looked at
yeah,
it.
we bring them both, one does, but one requires a board signature, one doesn't.
Right.
But we brought them both to you at different times, so this is the second one that you have to kind of go through, and then, when you're comfortable,
Yes.
let Kathy have it. I don't know if you wanted to go through it with the board, or if you wanted to do it.
This one's getting really, I
They're
have
very
to, I had
similar
to
to the ones that
initial,
you, yeah.
Kathy walked me through the whole process. I had to initial every page, and I have to sign it, so
Right.
anticipation to get us out of here in a quicker fashion, I preemptively signed it. But if this board does not authorize it, I will destroy this copy.
Yeah, they're very similar to the ones, the program assurances that you were presented with at the last time. It's all for the same thing, except federal funds.
Hold on.
All right. Are we looking to just make a motion to authorize you to sign it?
Correct.
I'll make that motion,
Second.
authorize the chair to sign.
Second. We're gonna make a motion to remove the governor next?
Yeah. Motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor?
All right, now listen, and if you have questions about grants and you want the person that comes in that manages the grants with the business administrator at a future meeting, just let me know and we'll have them here. Sandy Allaire will be doing that with obviously with the business administrator.
Okay, policy is, we're gonna table, school board goals, I think we're also gonna table.
Sure.
All right, so let's just move on to the administrative reports.
Just give me one second if that's okay. 7,000 points here.
Kathy, you have those school board goals. Can you just shoot them out in an email?
Oh,
'Cause
sure,
we're gonna
yeah, I
table
can
it,
send them
but
out, yep, sure will.
I had just,
I didn't see him in here.
No, they were, because I had cleaned them up from what Sean had and what we had discussed, and I sent them to Sean, and I thought he would forward them on to Mrs. Belchin. A little miscommunication, but they're there, and
No, I'm happy to do it.
so,
All set?
thank you.
Materials in the board packets, provided tonight in your packets. The 3 executive summaries that you requested. You have your summer projects update. That's in there. You have a staffing and enrollment update. I wanted to call to your attention, we've had 63 new students that we weren't planning on that have registered. The monitoring the numbers in Pollard. Pollard has gone up, especially in grade 1, considerably. Then we may need to come back and ask for additional staff. We're not quite sure yet. Also in there is the sped budget shortfall that you requested in an executive summary form and a treasurer's report. I'd also like to take this opportunity, during this really busy summer and with lots of projects, wanted to thank and show our appreciation for the custodial and the maintenance staff. A little short staffed, but not short on work. They've done a tremendous job. I encourage you to, if you're part of the building tours, to come check out the buildings, take a look at them. I sent an email earlier today to Jen and Sean. At some point, if the chair and vice chair want to accompany me with my building visits and welcome back staff, and they're welcome to. I know it's hard during the day, but if you can, that's great. Again, thanking our custodial and maintenance staff. They've just done a great job. And also, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your support as we move into our 1920 school year.
Can I ask a question about the summer projects? Middle school gym floor renovation, what did that entail? Was that a whole new floor?
Pretty,
Or was-
well, new floor, like sanded to the floor, and relined, painted.
So not new
restained.
boards,
No,
but completely
New
stripped?
boards, if there were boards that needed to be replaced, I'm not sure how many, but, it should look brand new. They do that, I'm not sure what the cycle is, if it's 5 or 10 years, but, getting that down, all the way down to the.
A meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So that should look, that's worth going over and taking a look at, it looks great, the brand new floor.
Right. Do we have any more information on the brick in the pack? Or just that we have the update?
I don't have any information, no.
Yeah, the project's scheduled to be done. Wasn't an architect had to do a redesign primarily because of the siding and the.
That was, yeah.
stone? That's where we were, and that's where we are.
We don't have anything
Yeah,
yet.
so that's,
That's in progress. So as we identify the point person, I'll connect them with Brian, and we'll get right back on that. The timeframe hasn't changed.
I don't wait 9 first.
We hope to have that done, what we talked about at the last meeting.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
Okay.
Personnel?
Report. Do you have this one that you've already ratified some of these?
Yeah, so it's in there just for, so that people can have that.
This was
So
some
that's already been
hiring.
done.
These are most of the hirings that you had.
Yeah, that's the one we did.
And then you have a new one, which I'd like to break out just a little bit different. We've had 2 resignations, Karen LaPlante and Marcy Nee. They're both special education teachers, one at Danville, one at Pollard, so we'll need, a motion to release them from their contract or accept their resignation, or however you want to handle those 2.
I'd make, take a motion to accept those resignations with gratitude.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by
One of
Sheila.
us.
Call for a vote, all those in favor?
Great, and
Unanimous.
they had opportunities that were great for them. We wish them well. They served us really well for many years. We thank both of them. I'd like to skip down to the professional, over the administrator for a brief second. We've had 3 new hires. Rebecca Cook, who's a special education teacher at Pollard, Kristen Doherty, a special education teacher at the high school, and Jacob Platt, who's a middle school Spanish teacher. So I'd like a motion to accept those 3 new hires.
I'll make that motion to accept those 3 hires.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Call for a vote, all those in favor?
That's awesome. A final nomination this evening is a much anticipated middle school principal position. I have to say, some decisions are easy and some are hard, and some hard decisions are easy. So if you can make sense of that. I really, as we got 3 finalists that were sent our way, and I sat with a very senior administrator, as we looked at them, it made us say, well, we wish we had 3 middle schools, because we had 3 really great candidates. It was a really, really difficult choice, but also, there's a time where the right person, we had, I don't want it to seem like, oh, we struggle. We have the nomination for you this evening that we're very excited about and think it was is a great choice. So Megan Kokler, and she decided to come tonight. I didn't make her come. She wanted to come. I'd like to nominate her to be our next middle school principal. I know you may look and say, oh, it was 1 year of experience, but it was a great year of experience. Certainly was a fantastic teacher, loved by all. Took that work to scale, took over a grade as an assistant principal, really, and worked with a great team there. Asked her this summer with the other 2 assistant principals, hey, will the 3 of you kind of run this together until we get to this point where we can make a nomination, and here we are tonight. So to put parents' minds at ease, they've been working together. They work together. That's what that team does. But we need a principal. We need a person, and so I'm very proud to bring Megan as our candidate for your consideration this evening to make our new middle school principal. So
I'll actually make the motion to appoint Megan Kokler as the middle school principal.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Call for a vote?
Yeah, just,
Wait, go ahead, Brian.
well, just to Dr. Menzel's point, I hear what you're saying, because it's been a concern of mine about the 1 year experience, but this particular individual also has 12 years' experience at the middle school. So I would say that, yeah, she may have only been your assistant principal for 1 year, but she's obviously been in that building for 12. So I'd say she probably knows the building.
and she's a middle school person.
There you go.
I don't know. It's a good thing, right? Having been one.
Okay, call the question.
Sorry,
Well,
can I ask one question? And there's no issue with this in regards to the recent filing?
No, I think Dr. Farah brings up a good point. So we wonder about this collective bargaining group. Those are really decisions made by individuals. They certainly can be candidates. So what essentially she'd be doing is vacating her previous position and accepting a new position with a negotiated contract, whatever, terms we can come to. But with your endorsement or accepting her nomination, that position would be open and anybody could apply for that. This is really a personal choice. So I guess her point was, she wasn't transferred, we're not transferring her into this position. She's vacating a position and applying for a new position. Right. So it's
the
clean.
status quo doesn't.
Wanna make sure.
Status quo
Right.
doesn't, in fact, because this is clean.
Okay.
Do-
Any other questions?
No, can I just make a quick comment?
Go ahead.
So, having a middle schooler and having worked with Megan over the last year, I know my son's gonna be bummed because he was looking to having her for his 7th grade direct person, but being there for the middle school principal, I know the kids absolutely adore her. She was very professional to deal with on every level when I've had to. I think she'll be a great fit. That's all I want to say.
Just back to Kim's point about, how does a new hire in a position under this potential bargaining unit, how does the contract, how would that work?
Well, the contract, this would be a new contract, and so
Right.
to keep it clean, I would want it to look like the contracts that currently exist, whether it was the term, how long, and so it couldn't be longer than any one that was already currently in place with that unit. I don't think that would make sense, right? You'd want them to kind of all end at the same time, so, because we have to honor the terms of those current contracts until a new bargain is, until something new is agreed for the group. But I say what makes this clean, I just don't want to confuse people, like, what we did before, we moved people around, transfer them, that's a little different than just, no, you can vacate the current position you're in and apply for a new position. Anybody can do that, right? So that's where that doesn't factor in. And then that other position, if it was something we were gonna fill, that would just be posted and somebody could apply and they would be leaving a position to go into a new position. Like, they're not holding on to their old position if they don't like their new position or they can't transfer back into it. It's clean. It's like, you no longer are the assistant principal, you're now the principal, right? That make sense?
I'm not sure that answered my question, but.
Oh, ask again, 'cause I
Well, I think the beginning part did. I wasn't really following the end of it that well, but, so no people, so everybody that is under a contract, see, it's just tricky because it's gonna be a new contract with a potential bargaining unit coming in to negotiate a new contract.
Correct, so with current contracts in place, so that's something we don't really know, but I think we wouldn't want a contract longer than any of the contracts that are there. We'd want them to kind of all be the same, so whatever the new deal is, I mean, hypothetically, you could strike you could have a whole new bargaining, that unit could bargain a whole new contract, all those old contracts could be gone, and they could start a new one if that was something that was negotiated. Or
That's
they
what
could
I'm
say.
so that's what I'm asking, yeah,
Yeah,
so
or-
how would that play out?
Well, they
Thank
could
you.
say, no, we want our current contracts to expire, and then the next one will start when those expire on July 1st of that particular year.
Okay.
I don't know how that, we don't know that, because
Okay.
that's negotiation table, and you'll figure that out as, with the negotiating team from the school board.
All right, thank you, that answered my question.
Anything else?
Call the question.
Call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous.
So much.
Congratulations. Make it appropriate to-
Congratulations.
We can invite Megan up, you want to say, is that okay?
Put you on the spot.
Yeah. We waited 4 hours.
You might as well.
I might turn into a pumpkin.
We saved the best for the last.
I appreciate that. You know what? I'll keep it short and sweet. You guys are probably all ready to go home, but I am so proud of our school. It's something I said over and over in my interview. I'm so proud of our school, and I'm proud of our district. And I've spent my entire career at the middle school building relationships with students and parents and staff. And so what I'm most excited to say to you is I'm looking forward to continuing doing that work of building relationships with our community. It's what keeps us going. It's what keeps our teachers coming back every day. It's what keeps our students walking in the door. I'm really, really excited to continue that work. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I look forward to working with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So that's the personnel report.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I know you will, but.
Well deserved.
Thank you so much. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Lily will send her
Yes, I hope
congratulations
so.
too.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, committee
Like hitting
report.
the ground running.
Committee reports.
Good luck, Megan.
While we're on personnel, then, motion. Can I make a motion?
Yeah, oh, yes.
Term personnel.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
So I would like to make a motion, given personnel changes, to direct the superintendent to present the school board with a reorganization of the maintenance department
Right.
for our September 5th meeting.
I think I already wrote that.
I'll
down,
second that.
yeah.
And motion made by Lee, seconded by Sheila. Did you get that, Kathy?
I did, because I wrote it down when you guys were talking about it.
So good.
Because there was no pressure at the time either. Yeah.
Smart lady.
Due to the changes at the SAU level, to direct the superintendent to come back with a maintenance reorganizational plan that includes a
Facilities director.
facilities director for the September 5th meeting.
Correct, that's
Is
exactly
that-
what I said.
That's exactly what you said, I thought so.
That's exactly what Sheila seconded.
And I seconded.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous.
So my intention would be to bring back an organizational chart with some job descriptions with the reporting, who they report to here.
Correct.
That's the, yeah, so that, and I'll list current staff, what we have for openings,
Yep.
and then their jobs, what they do.
Perfect. Kristen?
Just a quick point, when Angela was here, he was talking about there were some plans in place for things to happen in the fall. He was not sure of exactly what the plans were, but that things were implemented and plans to occur, such as the fixing of the middle school softball field. So I don't know if we can get that information and understand what those plans were, and if
So,
things are.
Yeah, I didn't hear exactly what you presented, so I'll apologize for the third time for not hearing it, because I
No,
wasn't in the
that's-
room, but I think,
right.
yeah, I think we need to know, and that part of it was part
Projects
of.
that were planned and.
Yeah, what the intent
What
was.
is,
I think part of it was, and I don't wanna go too far down, but
Yep.
part of it was the septic system that had, and parts of fields were
Yeah.
replaced and fields were rested, and then, so,
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
this.
well, yes,
And
and
fields
yeah, and
don't
he also
drain.
said there was a burst pipe with the track, so he said there were things that were.
Yeah, the
he listed
high
2
jump
items.
area.
right.
Yeah, so, but he said that there were plans,
And the middle
but
school
he didn't know what they
was-
were, so I just wanna make
softball
sure
field
we
were-
understand what those plans are, so those projects don't fall through by
Correct. So-
not having.
Is it the baseball
So-
field or the
No, it's
softball?
the
field?
softball field.
The softball field, the track, high jump area, and a couple other
It's in the
things.
presentation.
So we had some of that discussion at SLT, and just, the quick answer was basically, I was like, there's certain things that need to be repaired so we can use them. So the high jump area needs to be used. They were worried because the no means no with the new track. I go, it's not a new track, that's a high jump area, so you need to repair so we can have, home meets. So there are certain repairs, so that's part of it, but I'll get that kind of,
While we're in this restructuring idea, I just don't want those projects to fall by the wayside and then not be there for the spring.
perfect, yeah, no,
So
that can be part
that's-
of it.
There's
I
a
just wanna
lot,
make
there's a lot
sure-
in flight that
Yeah, just want to make sure we
things tend to
we
drop.
have a plan.
Yeah, it's on the last page in the presentation he made of his
Yeah.
things he'd like to have, the challenges for 1920.
But that requires a little more detail, right, yeah.
Yeah, I just, yeah.
Okay, committee reports. Kim, anything?
Oh, yeah, I do. We had the public hearing on the withdrawal plan. There's a 15-day wait period, and then it will be sent up to the Department of Education for their review. They have up to 60 days to review it, so we are anticipating presenting that plan to the Department of Education in October, hopefully. If not, it will be November. I'll try to let board members know. The board council will go up there, I'll go up there. Anybody else from the committee, from the school board, I guess, would be welcome to go up there, so.
Okay, and I was, just to add on to that, is that I was pleasantly surprised to see that Hampstead actually supports this. And, I mean, they have a couple concerns of that, which were documented in Ms. Parnell's presentation, but I was pleasantly surprised, and I think it's a good step forward with Hampstead in that.
Kim,
supporting
could
that.
you just verify whether or not they want me there or not? I mean, so if they want me there, I don't want them to be disappointed I'm not there.
Oh, yeah,
If I'm required, if they want me there, I'll be there.
I'm sure I'll be talking to council before them, because, yeah, I'll ask about that, and, I actually called Caitlin Parnell after the meeting, to let her know that I would bring those concerns to the board. We don't need to do it tonight, but Hampstead's concerns, I actually do want to get what she read, so that the board can, we will need to have a discussion so that hopefully we can come to some sort of resolution or agreement before we go up to the Department of Ed, because those are.
Let's put this on our next board meeting agenda.
I don't think I'd put it on September 5th. I don't think I'm going to have time to, I don't think council will have time to.
Well, no, I meant more of Hampstead's concerns and so forth.
Oh,
We could address.
I think I'd.
Want to do the
well,
19th?
Yeah, what, I don't know. if the-
I'll be at their meeting Tuesday night. Would you like me to tell them that you'd like to, would you like to meet with them?
No, 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 no,
You're talking
no.
about having an SAU discussion or having a discussion amongst just our board?
Our board, it would be our
needs a
board would have to
discussion.
discuss it.
Would you like me to ask
let's-
for her written statement for you, or? would
Yeah, I
you
was
like me-
actually going to ask her for that.
Oh, if you want, I'll ask her, unless you want me to
It's
ask her.
fine, you can ask her
If
if
she
you
read
want.
it, it can be,
I know, it can be
Hand it out to
transcribed.
No, but she
everyone-
had something, but she, I mean, it'd be
She had
easier.
something that was written,
but that's what I'm
and,
saying, if she can just provide it to all of
yeah,
us.
I meant to ask her, but,
Are you gonna ask, or you want me to ask? I can ask publicly, or I can ask privately, or I can,
you can ask,
I'll
I mean,
ask,
it's fine.
okay.
Because our council will need it, because there were important statements that she made, and some of them, I mean, one of the big ones was they don't want Timberlane to use weighted voting, during the transition year on matters that will be affecting Hampstead as it moves into its last year, or
Those make
into
perfect
its.
sense. I mean-
And it makes perfect sense, something we hadn't discussed in the transition plan, so, that makes sense.
but in fairness, you did ask for it, because that's kind of like an impact statement, really.
We did ask for the impact statement in advance of writing the plan, but they chose not to present that till the public hearing, so we will try to address it with the Board of Education since it came up with a public hearing, but it's not gonna be reflected in the plan.
Okay, we'll stop it at that.
Thank
Jen, you got anything? Policies. Next.
Well, no, I was gonna ask a question. SLT, do we have new policy committee people,
I ha-
or?
That, we had a
We're
meeting the other day,
scheduled to
it
meet
was
soon, I
pretty,
think?
but we will have the new people if you're on a board committee and you have particular people that you'd like me to consider to add, just please send me an email, which is fine. Or, you know, I'm gonna try to adjust staff. We don't, SLT's smaller now, because we're missing a few, we got a few openings that perhaps we'll be hiring, but maybe we'll see what happens, but I gotta spread people out. But
That's
you
fine,
need-
just keep me posted. And from New Hampshire School Board, I will have sections A through C for you on Wednesday about policies, section D through G before September 7th. That's the update.
Okay.
And then I had emailed you all just, you know, why it was taking so long, and there were some policies that they were looking to redo on their own end. So I think we'll be in good shape.
Lee, anything?
Nope, nothing for me.
I just had a question. Do we have a date for the next safety committee meeting?
No, I don't think that those dates have been
Okay.
put out yet, because they had their first meeting and then they choose them for the year. Is it?
Brian?
I have to get someone on that.
Sue?
CIP, I'm desperately trying to get a CIP committee meeting together. I've had a few things this summer, as you well know, so trying to get everybody in the right place at the right time. So I'm gonna continue to work on that, because we're way behind now. Or maybe we're not, but we need to have that meeting of that committee. So, any help you could give me there with getting, the SLT people in place? We're gonna have lost some people, so we can at least have a committee meeting and see what we've got for forms, et cetera.
Sarah?
I don't have any committee updates, just the marching band was out this week, band camp was this week, so they're working on their field show for the upcoming fall season, and from what I heard, the music is gonna be amazing. They've got some really great pieces picked out, and they're just having a great time. It's just fun to see them out on the field this week.
One last thing. I don't know if you all know, Coral is here. She's the vice president of the TTA. And I just want to say, we have our new collective bargaining agreement in place, and I'd like to thank Coral and Ryan. They've been very much involved in the professional development planning for the first couple of days. And we've made significant changes to that based on the input from TTA. Is that fair to say? And I think we're in a really good place to start the year. So again, we thank you for your contribution, but I wanted to recognize you and let you know that, you know, people are working together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out.
Okay, anybody else have anything last to the school board?
Look at Brian, it's like
All
right
right, good. Sue?
He's been right here.
I hate to do this, but I'd really like to go into non-public. I have one question that I need to get answered. So I'd like to go into non-public under Brian, I love you to death, but
He's gonna say no.
91A3 paragraph, whatever that is, 2, C, matters discussed in public.
Okay. There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Sarah.
Thank you.
Roll call
And that was
vote,
under
Kathy?
C, yeah. Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Doobie?
Yes.
Dr. Farah?
Yep.
Ms. Lowe's?
Yes.
Mrs. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Savage?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mrs. Silva?
Yes.
11:15.
All right, is it safe to say that we're going to adjourn?
Yeah, there
Because
wouldn't
Yes.
be any, yeah.
Please.
no decisions will be made? Okay, so this will
Coral.
conclude our public
Wait, hold
broadcast.
on.
I think
Yes.